Oh no, Tim Van Rand's in the chat room again.
Howdy, everyone. Hi, Peter.
He was in
Terrence
Des Moines.
Hi,
Des Moines.
How did he work around
Neil.
that filter
Moines.
that we put in? The anti-Tim
I
Van
know.
Ram filter.
TVR
Tim Van Ram.
filter. Yeah,
TVR screening.
yeah.
Not TSA screening, TVR screening. Anyway, hi, everybody.
Monsieur
Hello.
Kuipers.
It's snowing here again. It's only
Gross.
April
I think
the
we're
10th.
about to have some. I think we're about to have some thunderstorms roll through. It's getting very dark outside, which is good for my studio lighting, though, because I don't have the
Yeah,
sun
no, look at that's
shining
right.
in that
Looking
window.
Good, yeah.
Yeah.
Hi, Craig
If the-
in Montana.
Although it might not be good for the audio if we get some thunder and lightning, but we'll see.
Well, as long as your power stays on.
No, that'll be
That's all-
good.
That's all we.
It's always exciting.
Yeah, there's a line heading this way. I see it.
Oh yeah, there've been
We
a
were
lot of
supposed to get
lines
that.
The
lately.
radar.
But it kind of
Look at
it avoided us here in the.
Peter
Oh,
down.
really? I don't think we're going to
Oh,
avoid
yeah.
this.
That looks a
This
little
looks-
angry,
No,
Steph.
that looks
all
pretty
right.
unavoidable.
Yeah,
Did you see
that's
that?
gonna-
Tim Van Ram just kicked me out of the StreamYard stream.
Really?
How did that happen?
How can he do that?
What a
I don't
sure it
think
was his
so.
fault.
I think he did a side swipe.
You sure?
yeah.
You sure he hasn't got a cheeky little spanner there?
A spanner that has extra special powers that
Yeah.
we didn't know
Special
existed.
spanner.
Transatlantic. Oh, it's nice over in upstate New York. Well, it's been cloudy here all day, and it's precipitating. Okay, let's get going
That
because
is the
we've only
wrong
got
kind of
Steph
precipitation.
first for a precious few minutes.
All right. Well, hang on. So So we're gonna skip the Bonanza one, right?
Yep. Go
So
right
we're gonna
into
start with
Silkway.
the Silkway one. Okay. There's no
Correct.
video for that. Okay.
No.
So I'm good. But let me go ahead and just present my keynote,
Yes,
just
okay.
so I'm ready.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
Gotcha. Over. Okay. And
There it is. I see it, Jeff. I see you.
yeah, that's the Aeroflot SU-95. I don't know if that would be my. Is that going to be? What's my first video, Liz?
Golly. I don't
Feel
have
free to start.
I don't
I'm
have a
just gonna
video
pour some
until
more
the
whiskey.
Delta one, but maybe you
Whiskey.
must have dug up a
That's the only thing I see too.
yeah. So
Okay.
L.
Yeah, good.
Go
got
to L.
plenty of
Go to L,
time.
Jeff.
L?
Just go to
Oh,
L.
thanks.
No.
That's not very nice. Okay, that's the one for L. Try it again. Okay.
We're heavy on the news.
you go
folks,
to L.
and light on the feedback. So hi Donna Rose.
Hello, everyone in the live chat. Great that you're here with us. We do
Love it.
appreciate you.
Love them. Love them all. Even Tim.
Yep. Even Tim.
Yep, even Tim. Poor Tim. How did
He knows that that's our way of expressing love.
That's our APG love language
Mm-hmm.
abuse.
Oh, they really love me.
Are you almost there, Jeff?
It's kind of a personal question.
I know. I was hoping it wasn't
As soon as I
obvious, but-
said it, that was good. Didn't
Yeah.
come quite.
Almost
That's all right. I almost lost it at work. I feel like this is safe enough to say on YouTube and StreamYard because it is innocent. But we were before I left work, we were having a discussion surrounding shoes, and they were the front desk staff were Googling various different shoe brands and types and things, and I forget how it went exactly, but basically we were just Google searching, but then the guy who's at the controls of the computer and clicked on a link for a common sporting goods retailer here, and
a
the
man's,
secretary
a
behind him
man's
said-
name.
yeah,
A
she
man's
goes
name,
just out loud, in the lobby area of our office, said, "Oh, he's just looking at dicks." And then suddenly, very quickly, had to clarify sporting goods, because they're
That's one of my favorite things to
Except
do in
most
the
of,
hotel
like
van.
90% of us
And
were
you go
also
by
looking at the screen so we could see that it was tennis shoes and not, anything.
in the hotel van
questionable
when
for-
we're
not safe for
going by a Dick's Sporting Goods. I always like to say, "Hey, do you like Dick's Sporting Goods?"
The appropriately timed
Excuse me?
pause.
Yeah.
Sorry?
Yeah.
All righty. Let's roll.
Okay. Where's my Evernote? There it is. And let me go to the intro and
Got
let's
your
see. I got Dr. Steph there, Captain Nick, and these two gentlemen are not here. So let me take those out and move them down here.
You got your little countdown thing?
I do.
Or maybe it's a big countdown
Well,
thing. I
quit
don't
quit talking about my little thing, Liz.
You think?
Yeah. Okay.
All right.
Everybody ready?
Ready?
Pretty.
Yep.
Okay, let's do it.
You're listening to the Airline Pilot Guy Show.
The view from our side of the cockpit door.
WAPG. It's the Airline Pilot Guy.
Airline Pilot Guy, episode 658.
Yeah, he's up in the sky. It's the Airline Pilot Guy.
Hello, you're listening to the Airline Pilot Guy show, the view from our side of the cockpit door, with your host, Captain Jeff, broadcasting live from APG headquarters in Roswell, Georgia. Today's show is recorded on the week of April 7th, 2025.
Yeah, he's up in the sky. It's the Airline Pilot Guy. Put your light and he's flying by. With the Airline Pilot Guy.
In today's episode, 3 family members are found alive after their plane crashed into a frozen lake. Veteran crew members at Delta celebrate a milestone with a new in-flight video.
Thank you for choosing Delta for 100 years and counting.
Also ahead, more news and your feedback. So get all settled in. Tray tables and seat backs in the upright and locked positions. Electronic devices powered on. I'm Radio Roger, and Flight 658 is ready for pushback.
That was Radio Roger. Thank you, sir. An award-winning TV and radio reporter he is, currently at the #1 all-news station in the nation, 1010 Wins on 92.3 FM in
New York City!
Welcome to the Airline Pilot Guy Show. It's an aviation podcast covering the latest in aviation news and answering your great feedback. I'm Captain Jeff, a former U.S. Air Force pilot and retired Delta Airlines captain. And joining me from her lakeside studio in South is a doctor, skydiver, marathon runner, IPA connoisseur, and commercial multi-engine instrument rated backstabbing jumper dumper. It's Dr. Steph.
Hey, Captain Jeff. Good to see you this evening. Glad to make it back for another show. Apologies that the dogs need to be very close to me today for some reason, and there's something very interesting apparently happening outside the window, but hopefully there will not be a whole lot of barking or commotion. Just head shaking.
Oh boy. Well, I guess your doggies are expressing their doggy love for you.
For me, no,
nice.
probably for the deer, but yes.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm sure there's some love in there for you as well.
Oh, dear.
Also, joining us from his studio,
In Hartford, Hereford, and Hampshire.
retired professional dog photographer. He probably could take some pics of that deer too. Former RAF, RAAF fighter pilot, retired Airbus A330, A340 captain for Virgin Atlantic Airways. It's Captain Nick.
Hi there, Jeff. Great to be back on. Hi, everybody. HR 658. I think that stands for House of Representatives Bill 658. In 2011-12, amended the Federal Criminal Code to prohibit the aiming of the beam of a laser pointer at an aircraft or in its flight path, and they imposed a fine and or a prison term of up to 5 years. We applaud that bill.
Was that the bill that you actually presented? I see you at the
Sponsored.
podium there at the U.S. House
I
of
was
Representatives.
speaking in its, in support of the bill.
Oh,
there
okay.
At the House of Representatives.
And it's still
yes.
passed? Wow.
Cheeky rat.
Well, that lovely voice you hear, of course, is our producer. Let me do the proper intro here. She's from Toronto. She's a retired financier and aviation enthusiast, spreadsheet master. It's Liz Piper.
Good afternoon, evening, everyone.
Hi.
And to you.
Short and succinct.
I thought you were going
Very
to
to
do
the point.
Nell's intro.
Expecting
there.
more.
Short,
All right.
short,
Like it.
short and sweet.
To the point.
Short and sweet.
Just
All right.
like Liz.
Yeah.
Aw.
Thanks. All right,
Well-
you guys have a really good show.
Well,
Cheers.
thank you.
Bye.
We're planning on it. All right. Bye-bye. Let's do some news.
Stand by for news.
Okay, the first item we're going to cover today is this from the Aviation Herald. A MNG, I guess that should be an NMNG Airlines. What's MNG Airlines? Anybody know?
No idea.
Okay. MNG Airlines Airbus A330-300 freighter, registration Tango Charlie Mike Charlie November, performing flight 380 from Hong Kong, China to Istanbul, Turkey with 5 crew, was climbing through about 2,500 feet off of Hong Kong's runway 7 center, about to turn right onto the departure routing. A Silkway Airlines Boeing 777-200 freighter. So these are 2 freighters. Why are we even talking about this? Who cares, right? Just kidding. That's the regular media. They go, there weren't really any passengers on board, so let's don't cover it. So this is a Silkway 777-200 freighter, registration Victor Papa Bravo Mike uniform, performing flight 625 from Hong Kong to Baku, Azerbaijan, with 5 crew, was climbing through 2,500 feet out of Hong Kong's runway 7 right. About to turn right onto their departure route, the crew received a TCAS resolution advisory to descend. According to ADS-B data, the separation between the aircraft reduced to 0 feet vertical and about 800 meters, which is about just under 1/2 nautical mile horizontal space. That's close. That's like really
Think they got
close.
a good photos of each other? Like,
I
hi.
hope so.
Yes. Yeah.
Although they may have been busy doing other
Busy
things.
dealing
I
with
don't
their TCAS resolution, hopefully.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And flying the airplane.
Yeah.
After the conflict was resolved, both aircraft continued their climbs and flights to destination without further incident. Hong Kong's CAD, I'm not sure what that stands for, but it's probably their
Their NTSB
investigatory.
equivalent. Probably their NTSB equivalent or
Yeah.
something. Yeah.
I would think so.
No, it's
So they opened an
their aviation authority,
Like their FAA equivalent.
like the CAA, but
Yeah.
they call it the CAD.
Gotcha.
Okay. Well, good. They opened an investigation into the occurrence, stating the aircraft had been cleared to 5,000 respective 3,000 feet. I'm not sure why he wrote it like that. However, due to the climb rates differing from what ATC anticipated, the desired vertical separation was not achieved. While following their standard departure routes, both aircraft were visual with each other. About 7 nautical miles after takeoff, the crew of the Boeing 777 received a TCAS resolution advisory to descend. So they got a prelim report out, and let's see. So they, as I said, one took off from the center, 7 center, one from 7 right. As the departure tracks of aircraft 1, which was the 7 center, were and aircraft 2, the one on 7 right, were on converging tracks. Okay. Air traffic control procedures for dependent departure operations 1 was applicable. In this case, the requirement was for ATC to provide a 3-minute, 180-second minimum separation between a 7 right departure, aircraft 2, following a 7 center departure, aircraft 1. The data indicated that the 2 aircraft concerned were cleared for takeoff only 13 seconds apart versus the 180
1
that they were
1,000,
supposed to.
2 1,000, 3 1,000. That seems about right. Go ahead.
They counted a bit
they should.
fast, yes.
They'll be able to work it out. On noticing the occurrence of the incident, the aerodrome supervisor of the South Control Tower called the aerodrome supervisor of the North Control Tower to coordinate remedial actions. The agreement was to instruct Aircraft 1 to expedite to 5,000 feet and to restrict the climb of Aircraft 2 to 3,000. Yeah, that should do it. The 2 aircraft involved were given the respective ATC instructions accordingly. Both aircraft were provided with traffic information. Both aircraft reported visual contact with the other aircraft at the time. That's a good thing. Let's see. Based on preliminary data on hand, the closest spacing we talked about, 0.4 nautical miles horizontally and 100 feet vertically, with the aircraft on converging headings. Oh, man.
Yeah, well, they're both heading to the same waypoint, Beacol, and you're very constrained with terrain on those departures because there's high ground on both sides of you. So basically, you're flying over a watered channel between, an island and the mainland. So until you get above the safety altitude, you really have to stick very closely to the departure routing. So they couldn't really maneuver away from each other. They were relying on height difference, which I don't really understand how ATC managed to guess how fast these aircraft were going to climb. If they're using their past experience of how fast these aircraft depart, well, it's going to change day to day, isn't it? Because if you got a full load of fuel and a full load of cargo, you're going to climb at a completely different rate to one when you're, getting airborne empty. So I don't think that's a safe premise at all.
Well, if they followed their own rules, they would have given that 3 minutes. Spacing
that would have been fine. They were naughty boys. I'm amazed that they actually. Well, I'm not amazed. It's just not ideal to have 2 control towers clearing aircraft to depart. I know where you're going with this, Jeff. From runways pointing in the same direction, for example. But I guess that they don't get a view across the width of this airfield for one control tower to be able to observe everything.
You think they would have to, though, the way they have the procedure designed, if there's a requirement for a 3 minute, or they'd have to be in communication or coordinating in some way.
You'd think.
I would hope there would be some data available to them to indicate when they get a departure. But no.
Oh, okay. Very good. Well, we have the answer of MNG. So it's not
Mr. Nice
short
Guy.
for Mr. Nice Guy Airlines.
Yes. I prefer Mr. Nice Guy.
Yeah, that's much easier to pronounce. Well, thanks, Liz. Our staff figured out what MNG stood for. That's great. Thank you very much. And we'll have in the show notes, of course, the aerial Google Maps or Google Earth view of the departure routings and what Captain Nick was talking about there, that water channel that they have to kind of fly over to avoid the high terrain to either side of the tracks.
Yeah, so. It's just one of the oddities of Hong Kong is that they're difficult approaches. You've got to stick very closely to them, go-arounds in particular. Even at the new airport, the old airport was notoriously hard to keep clear of the high ground. But this new airport, despite the fact that they, picked the spot where they're going to have it, there are still plenty of restrictions.
All right. Very good. All right, let's continue with this next item. It's a final report from the Aviation Herald. Well, the Aviation Herald is reporting on the final report. They didn't actually publish it. An Aeroflot Su-95 at Moscow on May 5th, 2019, and we covered this shortly after it occurred. Aircraft bursts into flames during rollout and burns down. Oh, you know what? I do have some video of that, Liz. So I'm going to go ahead and play that while I do some talking there. So if you'll just add it. It's right there. And let me hit this button right here. And there we go. That's kind of a skidding. Do you remember that?
Oh,
Okay.
yeah, horrible.
On the 29th of March, 2025, the MAK released their final report concluding the probable causes of the accident were, let's see, I should probably kind of talk about a little bit about what happened here. There was some thunderstorms in the area, especially some severe ones right off of the departure runway. And they apparently knew it was there and discussed it, and they thought, well, this shouldn't be too bad. And so they took off, and they flew through this thunderstorm, and it was a lot worse than they had expected. And it knocked off the autopilot system because of the turbulence, and then it reverted to manual mode, I believe it was called. And as opposed to the what would you call it, fly-by-wire control system that has all the computers interacting, and it flies much more stably when you have that kind of system, like the Airbus. When an Airbus reverts to what do they call that, Nick? When you revert
Direct
all the way down to
would be
direct mode.
Yeah, degradation.
Yeah,
degradation. What's it? I've just invented
Degradation.
a new word. Degradation. Thank you. Yes.
I like it. I like it though. Anyway, so they came back around. They finally got control of the aircraft, sort of, and got vectored around for they had some problems with the radio communications. They got hit by lightning. That's probably what turned off the auto flight system. And they got vectored for an ILS approach, and they sort of got established on that. And as they got closer to the ground, the captain purposefully ducked under the glide slope inside of the decision height point, and slammed the airplane onto the runway. It bounced, I think, a total of 3 times. Let's see. So let me go back here to the report itself. The final report concluded that the probable causes were the ineffectiveness of the RRJ 95 flight personnel approved training programs. As for the actions and a major failure condition, abnormal situation of the fly-by-wire control system reversion to direct mode. Oh, they call it direct mode as well. And consequently, the insufficient knowledge and skills of the flight crew members to operate the airplane in this mode. Ooh, that's not good. Training programs met the minimum requirements determined by the FAR, but did not account for the specific nature of a particular emergency. Let's see. The ineffectiveness of the airline safety management system in terms of the monitoring of the pilot's sustainable skills development, which prevented the identification and elimination of the pilot and command's common systematic errors at the side stick pitch control at the stage of landing. Okay, so he was, I guess, vastly over-controlling the side stick controller in direct mode, and including forward inputs beyond neutral to nose down when he was in the flare. That's not a good technique. Let's see, the failure of the crew to comply with the FAR and operating manual requirements of the flight preparation and performance at the actual and forecast thunderstorm activity. In other words, I guess they just kind of didn't think much of that, as well as the availability to observe these zones on the weather radar display. Okay, so that almost seems to me like they didn't even look at the radar, which I kind of find hard to believe. Maybe I'm misreading that, which resulted in the aircraft encounter with atmospheric electricity. Yeah, lightning.
Lightning.
Yes.
I like
I
that
don't
wording,
understand.
though. Encounter
Yeah,
with atmospheric electricity. Sounds silly.
Atmosphere. Yes, we have encountered some atmospheric electricity.
Yes.
Yes. That's I think one of the pitot probe? No, it's not the pitot probe. It's another probe. Forget which probe.
Temperature or something? I don't know, but
Yeah,
it's obviously
it
got
says
some
in the report here what that
lightning
is.
damage.
It's all the way at the bottom. I'm scrolling furiously.
Let me go back to where was I before?
Right hand
I've
ice
lost
detector.
Ice detector, right hand. Okay. This next paragraph, I don't really quite understand. Psychological personality traits of the flight crew members that determine their behavior in a stress environment.
So,
Okay,
what is he saying? They got stressed out?
I guess. Or they maybe reacted improperly to the stressful situation.
Yeah.
Let's see, which prevented the objective assessment of his psycho-emotional condition. Ooh, I like that. And the ability to control the airplane. So in other words, he didn't have the ability to control the airplane, apparently, because of his psycho-emotional condition. Sounds like he should be doing some other job. I don't know. Yeah, I could be a podcaster. Thanks, Liz. The failure of the pilot in command to ensure that the aircraft pitch trim under the manual control, including at the glide slope descent. So I guess in this situation, you have to use manual pitch trim, and he apparently didn't do that, which would result in, I guess, that over-controlling of the side stick controller in direct mode. Here's a good one. The incorrect assessment of the situation by the crew when they received the predictive wind shear warning, go around, wind shear ahead, when they were on the glide slope, and consequently the non-initiation of a go around maneuver that resulted in the aircraft encounter of a microburst during the early flare stage and affected the aircraft flight path. Yes, very much so. Let's see, it does say that the documentation by the aircraft designer and the airline allows the crew to ignore the subject warning activation if it made sure that there's no wind shear threat. Still, the operational documentation and the operating manual do not integrate with the respective clear criteria. In other words, a little bit ambiguous, apparently. And I talked about before, he ducked under the glide slope close to the ground. Sometimes Liz will duck under if it's a shorter runway, or we feel the need to get it down closer to the end of the runway.
You want to land closer to the edge of the runway than farther
Yeah.
down.
So you end up steeping in the glide path for a moment and then kind of shallowing it out and then, touching down. This one is interesting too. The failure of the crew to carry out the standard operating procedure of manual speed brake deployment at aircraft touchdown. So apparently because they're in direct mode, they don't have the automatic deployment of the speed brakes on landing. So they, I guess, never put the speed brakes out, which kind of dumps all the lift off the wings and gives you much better
That
braking.
would certainly explain why they bounced so much.
Mm-hmm. And then when they did bounce, Captain Nick, they activated the thrust reversers.
Perfect.
Well, that'll stop you bouncing again too.
Yeah.
Well, eventually you run out of speed. Yes.
Yeah. So that says, they made note here that because the thrust reversers were activated during that first bounce, that they basically committed themselves to a landing. Go around was not impossible after that point.
Yeah, and that would have been a pretty dramatic touchdown, the second one then, if the first one wasn't bad enough.
And then once they finally slid to a stop, or I'm going to go ahead and play that again. When they came to a stop, they didn't run the proper checklist to ensure that the engines were shut down. So the engines of the aircraft were still running, and that kind of contributed to that fire that we see in the video of because there's obviously the wing box was breached and a lot of fuel pouring out of that, and then the engine exhaust firing back on it, and that helped fuel the fire. And also the crush and panic among the passengers, the efforts by a number of passengers to pick up their carry-on luggage at the evacuation. And again, we're watching this video of the evacuation, and several people have their luggage with them. Yep.
Yeah. Exactly.
I agree. All right. So yeah. They were talking about the fact that because of the thunderstorms off the end of the runway and the initiation of their takeoff, the crew did not request any kind of vectors or avoidance to avoid the storm system. They just thought, we're not going to bother with that. We're just going to fly right into it. In fact, the pilot in command said to the first officer, "We are going to get shaken." And the first officer said, "Damn it." And the pilot in command said, "Nothing to worry about." I think he was wrong.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, that was definitely a psycho-emotional reaction.
You're definitely right.
Oh, boy. So,
it's interesting because they talk about direct law, and I think it's important to differentiate between this aircraft and Airbus, which have a type of control law which has the same name. But an Airbus direct law, all that means is that you are now directly connected to the flight controls. There's no additional input put in by the flight control computers to change things. And every time you land, you go into direct law. So in the flare, you are in direct control of all the flight control surfaces. So it's something that happens, it happens gently. You go from normal flight laws into direct law in the flare, and just allows you, I guess, perhaps more control authority. There's no unexpected input from the flight control computers, and you know exactly what's going on. But that's the Airbus system. It sounds like their direct law is a bit more basic than that. I mean, they don't have any trimming, I don't think, and so they have to manually trim. And it certainly sounds like the pilots weren't well trained in flying in that mode, and it was hard for them to realise. Well, they just didn't realise all the things they needed to do in addition to just landing the airplane.
Yep. Yeah, could the running engines have actually pushed the fire aft, helping the evacuation? Well, according to the investigators, let me see if I can find that paragraph where they talked about the engines not being shut down.
I think they're more like to fan the flames, quite honestly.
Yeah, I think you'd want to do everything possible to not encourage the fire to grow in size. I mean, it's not enough. I don't think, there's... all it's going to be doing is encouraging the fire to increase in size, not pushing it away from the fuselage at that point.
And since they can't really see what's happening behind them, I don't think it would have been something they would have even considered to do on purpose.
Oh, yeah. I don't think so. Let's see here. It says large amount of fuel spilling out of both wing panels penetrated the area of the exhaust mixing nozzles, exposed directly to their jet streams. Yeah, so I think that was a bad thing, not a good thing. I don't think but good question, Neil. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and remove that from the stream. And what else to say here other than, well, it's sad because I think 41 passengers passed away and 40 of them due directly to direct exposure to fire, flames.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, terrible.
Okay, let's continue with this from the New York Times. From fire to ice. Yeah, what a great segue, Liz. I wish I had thought of it. Man and 2 children are found alive after a plane crash into a lake. A volunteer pilot found the 3 on Monday morning after they had been missing all night, the authorities said. They were taken to the hospital. A man, 2 children have been missing overnight, were rescued on Monday after the wreckage of a plane that crashed into a frozen lake in south central Alaska. The single-engine plane, a Piper PA-12 Super Cruiser. Hey, I think that's what... does Armando still have the Super Cruiser? I think he has something else now.
Don't think he has a Super Cruiser anymore.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
But I did my seaplane rating in a Super Cruiser also.
Oh, did you? Mm-hmm. Cool. Not this one there.
Not this one.
I don't know if we're showing there because that doesn't look like it has floats on it. So it would not be Yeah, very, very tiny little floats. Okay, this single-engine plane, the PA-12 Super Cruiser, was reported missing just after 10:30 p.m. on Sunday, setting off search and rescue efforts around Tustamina Lake and the Kenai Mountains, some 80 to 100 miles south of Anchorage, Alaska. The authorities searched all night but could not find the plane. The next morning, a volunteer pilot found the wreckage on the eastern side of the lake. The Alaska Army National Guard rescued the man and 2 children, all of whom had non-life-threatening injuries at 10:30. Yeah, that couldn't be comfortable. I would imagine that, it would be kind of a chilly outside, especially if you're wet. Let's see. 10:30 a.m. is when they rescued them, took them to a hospital. Dale Eicher, a pilot who had been searching for the plane, told the local news station KTUU that he was approaching the lake when he heard over the radio that the man and 2 children had been found alive. He assumed that the pilot who had located the group had no cell service and said that he immediately called the Alaska State Troopers to notify them. I was really shocked, he told the station. I didn't expect that they would be found alive for sure. Yeah, let's see. Does it talk? It really doesn't talk about exactly why they ended up crashing into the lake, only that they did.
Well, the lake surface was frozen, but it sounds like it was not thick enough ice to prevent it from going through.
Right. So Liz is showing on the video, and we'll have in the show notes this. You can clearly see the Piper kind of sort of floating on that ice, like thin ice, and the 3 individuals sitting on top of the wing. But man, does that look chilly. But they're from Alaska, so they're probably used to it. Okay, here's the wide shot. Yeah, and those are, look at the glacier flow in the background. Yeah, pretty cool. Well, anyway, good news for them. They were rescued.
Yeah. If they, presumably they didn't have any cell phone communication, but if you flew in those kind of areas, remote areas where there's, very few communications, wouldn't you normally carry a satellite distress beacon in your pocket? Because
it would be a wise thing to do.
Yeah.
And they're not expensive. I have one that we can use, when we're backpacking in the mountains, not that far from civilization, but far enough. I mean, it was $100 and like a $25 a quarter subscription or something. Like it's not, they're not cost prohibitive, especially if you're, doing things that cost a lot of money anyway, like flying airplanes.
So it's just that I would recommend anyone who does that sort of flying, and I'm sure many people do carry them, but they're a few $100 at the most. And you can get one that you can talk on, or you can get one that's just
send
an
messages.
emergency beacon. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the one that I have, you can send a text message. It'll cost you money if you do it, but I mean, gosh, that's why you have it, right?
Yeah,
exactly.
I have one of the ones made by Garmin that interfaces with my iPhone. There's an iPhone app, and it could be used without the iPhone as well, but it just makes it a little bit better user interface. But a lot of RVers use them as well because they're a lot of times out in the sticks somewhere. It's nice to have the ability to communicate with a satellite. Blackhawk, hey, we haven't seen you in a while. Blackhawk says pilot did not have a certificate. Oh boy. Rated pilot. He was not a rated pilot. That seems to be a common theme there in Alaska, isn't it?
Alaska's a little bit unique when it comes to aviation and general aviation in the United States.
A lot of cowboys up there.
Yeah, there are a lot of cowboys. So I guess that, boom. And a lot of guns. Blackhawk also says he's not cooperating with the FAA for some reason.
Oh, I wonder why.
Just like that Trevor dude, right? That YouTube, what do they call those? YouTuber? Influencer. Thank you, Liz. Craig says, I tried out the satellite texting with my new iPhone. All right, cool. So, did we just receive that from you, Craig, from your satellite? No,
that would be very
probably
cool.
no interface to YouTube. But that
Well, I
would be
noticed
cool.
my iPhone, when it can't get a signal, it goes to
Oh, yeah.
satellite. So if
That's
you're having
a new feature. Yeah.
yeah,
And,
if you have a fall or something, or you need emergency aid, you can just use your iPhone.
Yeah, I
very
think I think it's only the newest couple of generations of the iPhone with the proper operating system have that ability to actually use or
Yeah,
text to the satellites.
absolutely brilliant. Yep.
Yeah. All right. Let's continue on then with this from Av Herald. Is that what we're looking at? No, we're looking at this. I did my normal thing where I skipped too far ahead. An update from the last show. We talked about the brawl in the control tower at DCA in Washington. It says that the FAA now says that it's, and this is from Paddle Your Own Canoe. The FAA says it's sending its own counselors to the control tower, and they're reviewing a number of arrivals that controllers are expected to deal with after that bloody brawl broke out between two on-duty staffers last week. A 39-year-old air traffic controller involved in the incident has been arrested and charged with assault and battery following the March 27 something that reportedly left blood splattered across one of the computer consoles. Oh, the fight. Yeah, they left that word out, I guess. Yeah, thanks. Sources say that the fight is a sign of just how much stress the small team of controllers is under at DCA following the January 29 mid-air collision between a Black Hawk helicopter and an American Airlines regional jet on final approach to the airport that tragically killed all 67 passengers and crew on both aircraft. In the aftermath of the accident, the controllers have been under intense pressure to safely manage the heavy air traffic around the airport, while the FAA has come under fire for not providing enough support to the stressed team who witnessed the harrowing moment that the aircraft collided in January. Let's see. Without specifically referencing the physical altercation or the criticism it has faced, the FAA said in a statement on Wednesday that it was increasing support and oversight for the air traffic controller team at Ronald Reagan Washington National Airport, DCA. The FAA said that they were evaluating current arrival rates at DCA, which could result in flights being cut to the airport to allow more time between planes landing at the airport. Ooh, what a great idea. To support the well-being of controllers, a critical incident stress management team will visit DCA in early April, offering confidential support for staff following stressful events. I thought it was interesting. At present, most aircraft arrivals are disproportionately concentrated in the last 30 minutes of every hour. So the FAA could try to spread the arrivals across each hour in order to alleviate pressure on the control tower. Yeah. Wow. Well, I'm glad that they're doing something there to help these poor folks that have to work in that stressful environment. Yeah. I know what I'd do. I'd go in there and I'd just punch them all. Yeah, I'd just say, hey, do something. Yeah. What is it? Something up or something out? Shape up or ship out?
Shape up or ship out. Yeah. That's... As you punch them in the face. Perfect.
Another one from the Aviation Herald, a final report. This involving a Korean Airbus A330-300, registration Hotel Lima 7525, performing flight 631 from Seoul, South Korea to Cebu City in the Philippines, with 162 passengers and 11 crew, had gone around at low height twice following approaches to Cebu's runway 22. Climbed back to 5,000 feet, entered a hold, and landed on Cebu's runway 22 at 23:07 local time, so late at night, about 55 minutes after the first and about 42 minutes after the second go-around. The aircraft crossed the runway end at about 80 knots over ground, came to a stop about 1,200 feet past the runway end, close to the airport perimeter fence. No injuries are being reported. The aircraft, having broken through the localizer antenna, received substantial damage, including collapse of the nose gear, damage to the nose underbelly, and penetrations to the cockpit. But it was a much better outcome than that 737 that crashed into the localizer antenna array at, what was the name of that place? I've forgotten, in South Korea. Okay. So the first preliminary investigation results, a hydraulic failure had caused a brakes failure. Do I need to jump down to the actual report? Okay. Okay, thank you. On the 14th of March, so almost a month ago, the CAAP released their final report. The primary cause, the increase of vertical speed, was attributed to the forward pitch control from the captain that resulted in ground contact before the runway. The increase in vertical wind factor during the aircraft's descent on the second approach. The right-hand main landing gear hit a 15-centimeter step of the cemented edge of runway 22, resulting in multiple damage and faults to the said landing gear and consequently the loss of most of the deceleration means, specifically aircraft braking failure resulting in runway overrun. Also contributing, loss of spoilers and reversers, aircraft brake system dormant failure, the deficiency in Airbus's crew operating procedure and alerting in relating to the A330 blue hydraulic low level fault. So 15 centimeters, that's about 6 inches or so, something like that. Okay. So they hit that concrete lip of the runway and that kind of just sheared off some of the gear. That's no good.
Yeah, it ripped out a fair amount of the mechanics of the undercarriage, but more importantly, it tore the hydraulics and the electric sensors. All the cabling for that disappeared, so they ended up with a significant number of failures, which all combined to really rob them of their normal and backup braking systems.
Apparently the weather wasn't great that day in the Philippines. A lot of rainy weather, I guess probably convective activity, heavy rain. And in fact, the winds were shifting around quite a lot, and they're variable, and they decided, I guess they landed runway 4, or actually they attempted an approach to runway 4, and then because of the wind situation, they changed to runway 22. And it just looks like the weather was just too bad for them to have a successful outcome here. Although I think that they're probably trying to say that had the captain not pushed forward in the flare or close to the runway, that perhaps, they could have avoided shearing the gear and related systems failures.
Yeah, I mean, it's an inexplicable act on the part of the captain and he put quite a significant forward control movement to descend the airplane short of the runway. I think everyone's sort of scratching their heads going, why did that happen? But of course, he might have got away with it if the transition between the undershoot, the rough ground before the runway, and the runway lip was smooth. But, I mean, who builds a damned airport with a great big concrete lip? And it wasn't huge, but it was enough to wreck that airplane. Whereas a lot of other airports with a decently constructed undershoot, even if it's only earth, leading up to the runway, he might have got away with that with a lot less damage, and obviously might have been able to keep control of the airplane, stop it from running off the end of the runway.
Yeah, I see that. Tim Van Ram, our roving reporter, breaking aviation news: helicopter crashes into the Hudson River. Early reports, at least 5 perished. Oh my gosh.
Not good.
Maybe if you have a link, Tim, of course, I don't know if you can put links in the chat.
No, I don't think you can.
Okay. And he was talking about these lips. The only other place that I've seen the end of runways look like this, Captain Nick, were ones that were in Africa. I've seen a lot of those incidents and where airplanes have basically caught that big lip. I'm sorry.
I mean,
the
it
only thing
doesn't
I can
take
think
much to fix it. Or you just get a day with a bulldozer. It's probably enough just to get the ground leveled prior to the runway edge.
So this is the second news item that we've talked about today involving the pilot flying, ducking under close to the runway. And in both cases, it had negative results.
Yeah, pretty traumatic.
Oh, all right. Let me see if I can find that. Thank you, Steph. Multiple fatalities report. Okay, let me see. Okay, Apple News. Thanks, Steph.
You're welcome. Sorry, that was just the quickest way for me to find it.
I hate it when I just want to see the
You should be able to
article.
You should be able to just open the article. No.
Well, no.
Only
Now
if
it's
he
going
pays
through all
for
these.
Apple News.
Turn off
It's just
personalized
from
ads.
ABC 7. I don't know.
Okay. The thought was what counts there, Steph. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. At least 6 people killed after a helicopter plummets into Hudson River. FAA confirmed that a Bell 206 helicopter crashed into the river. At least 6 people were killed after a helicopter crashed. Obviously.
Yeah, I can read what I've got on this one. It says,
yeah, go ahead, Steph.
There's actually video on that one that I sent, but if you can't get it, I'm sorry. It says video
There's
shared
video on
appeared to
this
show
one, too.
pieces of the helicopter break apart and crash into the water. So in the Hudson River, closer to the Jersey City side. I believe it was a Bell 206 and may have taken off from the downtown Manhattan heliport around 3 p.m. and went off radar at 3:25 p.m. So that's the bulk of it right now.
The video that I'm seeing in this particular article from Fox News just shows a bunch of boats.
This does
kind of
say
around
they think it was a family of 5 from Spain on a sightseeing tour,
Oh no.
plus the
Not
pilot.
good.
Yeah.
That obviously the weather conditions are nice, so I don't think weather has anything to do with this. You said you thought that there were witness reports that said the aircraft had
Witness reports, and
had
apparently
broken
there's
up.
video. I don't know if I have a way to share that.
Of the actual airplane coming down, the
I'll have to
helicopter
watch it
coming
here
down.
real quick. Hold on.
Okay. Obviously, we'll be covering it on the next episode. Yeah, Liz?
Oh yeah, the video. I mean, it clearly shows it's just a very short clip here, but it looks like there's at least something coming off of the helicopter. It's definitely not fully intact.
Yeah, we're going to cover this on the next week's episode, and hopefully we'll have some good video to show you and more details. But thank you, Steph and Tim, everybody for helping us with that breaking news. All right, so let's get back to where we were. Okay. Again, I've lost my Evernote. There it is. So were we finished with I think we were finished with that other one in Korea, or the Korean A330 at Cebu in Philippines. Okay. Is it Cebu or Cebu? I think I've heard both pronunciations. Anyway, doesn't matter. Let's continue with the
Depends if
Aviation
you're
Herald.
looking or talking, whether you're seeing Cebu or whether you're speaking Cebu.
Oh, okay. Is that the way they do that in the Philippines? Okay. Thank you, Nick. Okay, this from the Aviation Herald final report. Alliance E190 at Honiara on February 23rd. Low speed on departure. Okay, an Alliance Air Embraer ERJ 190 on behalf of Solomon Airlines, registration Victor. Oh, I'm sorry about the barking in the background there. Victor Hotel Uniform Yankee India performing flight 700 from Honiara in the Solomon Islands to Brisbane, Queensland, Australia, with 66 passengers and 4 crew. We're climbing out of Honiara. How would you say that with a Australian accent, Nick?
Honiara.
There we go. I knew I just can't do it. When the aircraft did not accelerate, the crew reduced the flaps, resulting in a visual low-speed alert. The crew subsequently discovered that the speed mode had been incorrectly set. I wish we had some of the folks that I know are in our APG community that have flown the ERJ 190. Maybe somebody in our live chat may raise your hand or say something if you've flown this airplane. Captain Craig would definitely be one that I was thinking about. Anyway, on April 4th, 2025, the ATSB released their final report. During the before start procedure, so the airplane's on the ground before they've even moved the aircraft, the captain unintentionally left the speed selector knob in manual mode instead of flight management system mode with no manual speed set. It kind of reminds me of that 777 at one of the Middle Eastern airports that took off and they had zeroed out the altitude in the
oh golly, yes, it did an altitude capture at nearly 0 feet. And
they
went
tried
down the
to fly
runway
them
without
right back
climbing.
into the ground. Yeah. So this one, nothing to do with altitude, but speed. But it's another one of those aspects or parts of the autoflight system that you need to have set properly before you set off on your flight. And so for some reason, it said he unintentionally left the speed selector knob in manual. The manual speed mode selection was not detected by either flight crew member, resulting in the aircraft decelerating after vertical flight level change mode was engaged. So after they are, in the air and then they changed the mode of the auto flight system, it goes, okay. And, you want me to go to 0 speed. Okay. That's not good. For airplanes to fly, they have to have some speed. While the captain was monitoring traffic, you'd think that he may have noticed that the engines were not as loud as they normally are. I don't know. Or at least, like decelerating or going to idle or whatever. So the captain was monitoring traffic, weather, and making a radio call. And the FO was not effectively monitoring the airspeed. That's critical. You have to. And as a result, did not initially detect the aircraft decelerating. Having assessed that the low airspeed was due to excessive drag. Okay, so the captain thinks, we're slowing down because we have too much drag. The captain retracted one stage of flap while below the minimum flap target speed.
Ouch.
Yeah, so now you're getting rid of your lift capability.
Made it worse.
Yeah, made it worse, resulting in the aircraft entering a low speed state. Embraer's airplane operations manual was inconsistent with its standard operating procedures manual in relation to speed mode selection. This increased the risk of flight crews departing with the manual speed mode unintentionally selected. Consistent with Embraer's airplane operations manual, the Alliance Airlines pre-flight procedure required the flight crew to unnecessarily initially set the speed knob to manual. This increased the risk of the aircraft departing with the incorrect speed mode selected. So what are they saying there? They're saying that...
I think they're saying that part of the checklist takes you through an unnecessary speed mode selection.
Yeah.
I mean, and if you miss the next step, then it gets left in a selection that it should not be on.
Okay, so the checklist doesn't tell them to set it to manual. It tells them to do something with it, but they just
No, I
get
think
the
it
wrong
does
thing?
tell them to set it to manual, and then I think later on it directs them to set it differently. But it's just an unnecessary step. It never needs to be in manual. Is the way that I read that.
I'll bet they've changed that.
I would hope so. And that was the inconsistency that they were talking about, I think, with the Embraer's, standard operating procedures versus what needs to be
And
done.
the other question I have is, what flap do they take off with that the captain thought that it was creating so much drag that the aircraft wouldn't accelerate? I mean, he really didn't analyze that situation very well at all.
Not at all. Not at all. I would think it would be obvious if you're in the airplane, especially if somebody that has a lot of experience in flying airplanes, that the airplane is decelerating and the engine sound is going down, getting quieter,
Yeah.
that would be the cause. The thrust would be the issue, not the drag. But that's just me, I guess. Likely due to a training deficiency, Alliance Airlines flight crews' conduct of the before start procedures and pre-takeoff brief review were not being performed effectively to ensure that the speed selector knob was correctly set and checked, which increased the risk of the low speed event after takeoff. Let's see. Alliance Airlines right seat pilot shutdown flow was undocumented and not in accordance with the manufacturer's guidance. Alliance flight crews were regularly changing the speed selector knob setting during the takeoff run.
Nice.
What?
Interesting.
What?
Why would you be doing anything
What?
during your takeoff roll?
I'm thinking, can this be right, this sentence?
Well, apparently.
I guess so.
Yeah.
Why,
I mean-
yeah, as you said, Steph, why would you be doing anything
Other than
other than,
power set.
what?
And
Yeah.
yeah.
Wow.
No, now's a good time to change this mode setting here while we're actively moving down the runway.
No, it's not. At least they say this was contrary to Embraer's guidance. So Embraer doesn't say, no, you should do that now. I mean, Alliance Airlines' own standard operating procedures manual says,
It's contrary to the standard, both.
Oh, and for both of them.
Mhm.
Okay. But these crews are just doing it on their own without the guidance. Yeah, they're freelancing the thing. Wow. Okay. Yeah, I can see why they got the low speed here. Yeah, that's something. They did. They recovered and they reported it, which is good, so that other people could learn from it. But apparently it wasn't just this crew. It sounds like a lot of the Alliance Air crews are doing the same sort of thing.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Because if you're changing the speed selector knob during the takeoff run, it's because it's been left in manual and you suddenly realize and you're putting it to where it should be. So this captain's unintentional action of leaving the speed selector knob in the manual mode does not appear to be an uncommon thing.
Okay. 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 Before we do, we have an update from Tim Van Ram regarding the pronunciation of Cebu Cebu. He says the Tagalog pronunciation is Cebu. I hear
Tagalog.
Filipino word. Huh?
Tagalog.
Tagalog? Oh, see, I can't even pronounce that right. Tagalog pronunciation is Cebu. I hear Filipino workers speak of this area lovingly. Yeah, I hear it's a very beautiful place. All right. Let's see. Oh, Neil has one last comment. No knob twiddling during takeoff. Exactly. Or else you're going to get your wrist slapped. Let's see.
Or your knob slapped.
Or your knob. Ooh. Okay, I got it. I want to say something so badly after what Captain Nick said, but I'm not going to. Okay. This from Paddle Your Own Canoe. Wow, we have at least two of these from Paddle Your Own Canoe. American Airlines passengers forced to endure 12-hour flight to nowhere. Well, not exactly. Just so plane could end up at one of the carrier's maintenance bases. So an American Airlines flight from New York JFK to Tokyo ended up flying for 12 hours just to end up back in the United States so that the plane could be positioned. Okay, we just talked about that. Could be positioned to one of the carrier's maintenance bases due to a malfunction with the wing antifreeze mechanism.
Yes.
Huh.
Love that
Antifreeze.
antifreeze system.
Yeah. Okay.
My car has one
passengers-
of those.
Yeah, I know. We have antifreeze in our cars.
Antifreeze fluid. Yes.
The passengers aboard American Airlines Flight 167 on March 31st ended up flying for 12 hours. Okay. Just 2 hours, at just 2 hours less than the flight time to get all the way from New York to Tokyo, the passengers on 167 had to forgo ramen and sushi for their evening meal and were instead issued a measly $12 food voucher and put up in a local hotel, according to one of the passengers on the Boeing 787 Dreamliner. So according to flight tracking website Flight Radar 24, the flight took off from New York JFK a little behind schedule on Monday morning before it headed west across the United States for its trans-Pacific crossing to Japan. About 2 hours after passing Vancouver, BC, the plane made a sudden about turn and started flying back towards the United States. At this point, it might be assumed that the aircraft would have to land at the nearest available airport due to a serious issue with the plane. But after passing straight over Seattle at a cruising altitude of 37,000 feet, the plane then followed.
Don't they make them in Seattle?
Yeah, they do. But American Airlines apparently doesn't have a maintenance facility there.
Okay.
Yeah. The plane followed a diagonal route across the U.S., passing over Idaho, Wyoming, Colorado, and Oklahoma before ending up in Texas. According to a passenger account of the incident, the pilot told everyone on board that there was an issue with the antifreeze mechanism on the wings. I think they probably misheard the pilot. I don't think any pilot would ever say antifreeze mechanism. Or maybe he did. I don't know. Maybe he did.
Maybe that's just easier for the layperson to comprehend. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess that's possible. Dallas-Fort Worth appears to be an obvious choice as American's primary hub with a major engineering base and replacement aircraft and crew on standby to rescue the stranded passengers. That fact, however, is probably little solace to the passengers who had spent half a day on a plane and had been rescheduled on a replacement flight that would get them to Tokyo more than 24 hours late. So they weren't very happy about that.
Well, I'm not surprised. As it turned out, they would have been much better going to Seattle and having it fixed there. Give the crew a minimum rest in a hotel. They would have been off actually quicker than they would have after going all the way to Dallas.
I would think so,
Presuming they could get it fixed in Seattle?
No.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
If they can't fix it there, that's a bit of a worry.
It does seem kind of a ways out of the way, doesn't it?
Yeah.
What about San Francisco or Los Angeles even, Yeah.
Well,
not a choice. They're on the West Coast.
Yeah. American Airlines, I can see why they went to Dallas. Yeah.
You said you can see?
Sure.
Why? Okay.
Just because it's American Airlines and
oh, okay.
That's where their maintenance. Well, I mean, that's where their main maintenance base is, right?
I can tell you're being very pensive about your actual.
My choice of I mean, I'm just trying to think where else they would have a replacement aircraft crew and be able to do the required maintenance work.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure this was discussed, en route back where they were going to divert to and what made the most sense and where aircraft and crew were positioned and what type of work needed to be done on the aircraft. So I'm sure this was very deliberately chosen and not just, hey, you know what? Let's just go to Dallas.
I found this update. The captain has a girlfriend in Dallas. Okay.
Yeah. You know who I feel sorry for?
Who?
The crew who had to take them on their second attempt to get to Tokyo.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And Dallas to Tokyo is not a short flight either. I've done that. It's still another like
anywhere
13
from the
hours.
U.S. is a long flight to Tokyo.
10 hours,
wow.
maybe? I forget.
Okay, well, I think that Liz is the only one that's disappointed by this one. Let's see. This is from Delta Airlines. They have a new... No?
K.
Oh, I thought you said L.
You can go to L if you like.
Oh, I did it again. Sorry. I'm always getting ahead of myself and then screwing myself up. Okay. I'm trying to stop doing that, Liz, but I can't help myself. And it's another Paddle Your Own Canoe article. Hundreds of passengers on a Virgin Atlantic flight to Mumbai stranded in a remote Turkish airport after emergency medical diversion leads to a hard landing. Oh. As many as 335 passengers on a Virgin Atlantic flight spent an entire day and night sleeping on the floor of a small and remote airport in eastern Turkey. Yay! After an emergency medical diversion led to a hard landing. Huh?
How exciting.
Yeah, we're like, wow, this is fun.
Yeah, I've never been to eastern Turkey before.
Now, it doesn't really say why they had the hard landing that I recall, but I would imagine that airport's probably doesn't have a super long runway, I'm guessing. I don't know. It could have had a 15-centimeter lip, just like the other one. Virgin Atlantic Flight 358 departed London around 12 p.m. on March 2nd, but less than 4 hours into what should have been a routine 8-hour flight to India's financial capital. The pilots were alerted to a passenger suffering a serious medical issue. The pilots decided to land the 4-year-old wide-body. I don't see why that's important. It doesn't matter how old the airplane is, as quickly as possible so that the passenger could be rushed to the hospital. At this point, they were flying over eastern Turkey with limited diversion points. Flight 358 ended up landing at Diyarbakir Airport, I guess, I don't know, which is a military air base and small public airport located around 80 miles north of the border with Syria and more than 600 miles southeast of Istanbul. Once on the ground, however, it soon became apparent that it wouldn't just be a case of sending the sick passenger off in an ambulance and quickly departing the airport to continue the journey onto Mumbai. The aircraft suffered a hard landing and would require engineers to carry out a careful assessment of the technologically advanced plane before it could be allowed to continue on its journey. Of course, as a small airport with limited air traffic, they didn't have any engineers that could carry out this type of inspection on an Airbus A350, so Virgin Atlantic was forced to fly its own engineers out to eastern Turkey. Getting the engineers to Diyarbakir, however, wouldn't be a quick task, so the passengers were told they would have to spend the night in Turkey so the plane could be fixed. Unfortunately, most of the passengers didn't have the necessary visas to enter Turkey, so they were forced to spend Wednesday night in the small passenger terminal at the airport. By Thursday afternoon, though a thorough assessment of the aircraft was still taking place, it was unclear whether the plane would be cleared to fly on Thursday to get the passengers to Mumbai. Having spent an entire day at the airport, the passengers eventually were given a slight reprieve when Virgin Atlantic won exceptional approval from Turkish immigration authorities to move the stranded passengers to local hotels for a second unscheduled night at that airport in eastern Turkey. In a statement, a spokesperson for Virgin Atlantic explained that the Flight 358 was canceled due to an urgent medical diversion, followed by ongoing technical inspections of the aircraft. Okay, so here at the bottom line is, I guess they finally cleared the aircraft airworthy after the thorough inspection, and the passengers being provided with overnight hotel accommodations, refreshments, etc.
According to Google, quick Google search, the runway length at Diyarbakir is 11,644 feet long.
Okay, well, so much for that idea that I had, that it was a short runway and they needed to get it down, and that's why they had a hard landing. Well, the other thing I was going to ask, and it seems like it was probably, I don't know, it seems important to me. Whatever happened to the sick passenger?
Went to hospital. Unimportant.
Okay.
He had indigestion, so he got back on the airplane. No, yeah, you're right. It would be nice to know whether it was a justified diversion or not, but of course you can't tell when you make that decision. And it's probably one of the toughest things to assess for the captain, because he's relying on his cabin crew to communicate to him exactly what's going on their assessment. And of course, they are relying a great deal, usually, on medical advice given to them by their chosen team that usually is in a hospital somewhere in America, who they communicate with. And the systems that Virgin have to assess a patient's situation are pretty sophisticated. Cameras, testing and measuring devices for blood pressure and blood oxygen, that sort of thing. They can put an ECG on to check get a heart rate out, and all that can be transferred via the aircraft's communication system to America, and then the specialist hospital there, who does this for lots of airlines, will have an expert on hand to review and give them advice. I have to say, they weren't that far from Ankara and I think that would have been a much better place to go. But that, all the time that they're trying to make a decision, they were getting further and further away. So I guess when they decided that they had to divert, they were a bit too far away to risk getting this patient all the way back to Ankara. But it's a bit of a shame, really, because that would have been a much better choice.
Yes. I would have gone to Baku, Azerbaijan. That wasn't too far either.
No.
It's a beautiful city. That is a good question.
If you've got one that is available, yeah. No, it's not a big fleet. So that itself is an issue. Yeah, and usually a hard landing doesn't. Very rarely, just the aircraft often senses a hard landing, and it will spew out a bit of paperwork with a report on it, and the engineers just do an inspection, and 9 times out of 10 there will be no actual maintenance required. But perhaps this was more complicated than they initially thought. Yeah.
Well,
I mean,
they
it
did
reminds
their
me
best.
of the 747 of Virgin that diverted to a little Canadian place, Iqaluit. With a medical emergency, and taxiing in to get this medical, this patient off the aircraft. They ran into a stanchion and damaged one of the engines because they weren't being sufficiently well marshaled, because they're not used to having 747s go into this airport, and they were on the ground for ages. I mean, they
had to do that
put
engine
everyone up in
Here's
a
your
gymnasium or
unplanned
something.
vacation to Iqaluit. Enjoy.
Yeah, exactly.
Was that the one where they had to put the tents around the engine? Oh, that was a different one. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. Oh, well. Okay. Thanks, Liz. Let's go to this next one. See, I waited. I didn't click ahead, so I'm trying to control myself. So this is a safety video from Delta Airlines, and we're going to go ahead and in honor of its 100th anniversary. So it's a centennial video. How about that? So let's have a look-see. What do you think? For a century of flight, Delta has always put safety first.
Welcome aboard, and thank you for choosing Delta for 100 years and counting.
That's Jade.
Delta Airlines.
The health and safety of our customers and crew is
There's
our number
Nate.
one priority and the shared responsibility of everyone on board. So, before we depart, please pay attention to this important message.
That's the
Stow all carry-on
1920s.
items in an overhead bin and place smaller items completely under the seat in front of you.
Larger electronic devices
Alana,
must be placed in a bag.
1940s.
Handheld portable electronic devices,
What happened in the
including mobile
1930s?
phones, should also be secured.
Never happened.
Unimportant.
Keep the aisles, exits, and bulkhead areas clear. If you lose an electronic device in your seat, please do not adjust your seat
The
and ask a crew
1950s.
member for help.
Julieta.
As we leave the gate, fasten your seatbelt by inserting the metal tip into the buckle and adjusting the strap so it's low and tight across your lap. To
The
release,
60s.
lift the top of the buckle. If your seat has a shoulder harness, attach the metal tip to the fitting on the belt. To release, push the metal tip down. Stay seated with your seatbelt fastened when the seatbelt sign is on, and keep it fastened whenever you're seated in case of sudden rough air. In the event of
Looks
rough
like a
air, the
communist,
crew might also need to buckle
uniform
up for
to me.
safety. We appreciate your
Wasn't very
understanding if our
imaginative, was it?
service is interrupted.
Federal regulations require all passengers to comply with all crew members' instructions, along with the posted placards and lighted information
I'm going to turn the volume down a little bit on that video so we can make our cute, pithy comments.
cigarettes or any smokeless product, including
Oh, that's
Smoking on
significant.
board.
That
Yes, of
scene right
course we
there.
can.
She's the one that did the no
Hang on, we did
smoking
it
with
in the
a-
60s.
disabling or destroying restroom smoke detectors.
This looks like the 70s.
8 doors.
Okay, this guy, I think is the 70s. Kind of feels like the 70s.
I'm looking
to
at
me.
the like floral, flowery design
Yeah.
happening.
Behind. Carry
Yep.
baggage will slow the evacuation.
Disco ball. Were those
Disco ball, yeah.
were those standard equipment on in the aisles
Yes.
of aircraft in the 70s? I wasn't around in
Yes.
the 70s, so I have to ask these questions.
Lights will illuminate the aisle.
That's true.
Yeah, remember the pilot
that's
poker
right.
parlor? Yeah.
It's unlikely, but
Oh, the 80s.
Alana in the 80s.
panels above your seat and inside the lavatories. Reach up and pull a mask or streamer down.
Glad
Start
we've
the flow of
moved past
oxygen.
that fashion
Remove any face covering and place
yeah.
the mask
era.
over your nose and mouth. Slip the elastic strap over your head and adjust the
Like,
mask if necessary. Breathe normally
like-
and note the oxygen is flowing, so don't worry if the
Flash
bag doesn't
dance
have
I don't
or
even
enough.
know
whatever
how
that thing
to-
was
Be sure
called.
to adjust your
Yeah,
own
flash
before
dance.
helping others.
Some some
Jazzercise,
forehead
yeah.
sweatbands. And,
Evacuation is also unlikely.
oh,
Just
The
well, the 90s
90s.
weren't so great either, were they?
beneath or adjacent
What were
No.
we thinking back then? Not a lot, really. Sweater vests without anything underneath them. Unsure.
Wrap the strap around your waist, attach it to the buckle in front, and adjust securely around your waist. As you leave the plane,
The safety
Makes
vests
the
haven't
makes the
really
40s
changed
and
much.
50s.
or manually
Yeah.
inflate it by blowing into the tube at shoulder level.
It makes the 40s and 50s and 60s look a lot more appealing fashion-wise.
Under 35 pounds,
I think
place
so.
the vest
Yeah.
around their waist and secure the strap between
That
the
teal
legs.
and fuchsia pink color combination was everywhere in the 90s, wasn't it?
Additional life vests for
Mhm.
lab children are in marked compartments at the front and rear of the plane.
And this just looks like a
If necessary.
clip from like
Before takeoff, bring your
Okay.
seat to
Oh, gosh.
position
The
and slowly tray
2000s.
table, Footrest and leg rest.
which in my head I'm like, yeah, the 2000s. That's where we are now. No, that was 25 years
No.
ago. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
It
it's been a
goes
while.
on a bit, this, doesn't it? Good
Yeah,
job
it
they
does.
didn't
It's a very
do the
long.
30s.
Hopefully, have a long like taxi to go through all this
Yeah, no kidding.
safety. Yeah, just like
yeah, we already
not
been in the
important.
air, passing 10,000 feet.
Take a moment to review the safety information
Okay,
card in
let's
your
see.
seat.
Come on, get to it here.
Finish our safety check.
Oh, the
Please let us know if you have
2010s.
any questions.
Al is representing
As we
them.
take off into the future, sit back and relax. And from all of our crew, thank you for flying with Delta today and for the next 100 years.
Okay. No, thank you. Delta 100 years. Well, that's so. Liz, what do you think about this? Yeah, it is very distracting. We've
Although
had this
I
kind
have
of
to say it's better
discussion
than
before, though.
some I've seen, and much better than some
Yeah.
I've seen. At least they show the actual safety equipment and they show the inside of an aeroplane. And New
Mm-hmm.
Zealand has some ludicrous ones where, they're all standing on a beach. You don't even see an aeroplane.
the best one I saw
Yeah.
was a cartoon, so it was animated.
Mhm.
That was I don't remember who that was.
Virgin.
Yeah.
We used to do one of those. In fact, we probably
the
still
one
do.
that I always remember is was it New Zealand that
Where they
did
were just
they were all
spray
naked
paint-
and they had
yeah.
body painting.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was distracting.
Yeah, that was distracting.
There was a lot of attention being paid to the actual video, but not a lot of learning about the safety features, I feel like.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm
Yes.
Yeah,
there was a British
I'm
Airways
with
one of the
Liz.
comedians. Yeah.
I think you've got to get the message across, and making it interesting viewing helps people stay glued to the screen, but for the wrong reasons. But there you go.
So this segment, I forgot what decade this was, but they're talking about smoking. And do you remember the famous? I forgot what her actual real name is, but I've flown with her before. She did that
Linda
famous.
Lovelace?
No, it's a
Okay.
flight attendant for Delta that did
Sorry.
the saying, like, she kind of waggles her finger like, no smoking allowed, and she became famous for that. It was like one of the very first safety briefings that I recall that had that kind of, I don't know what you would call that, little, not really comedic.
Like a vignette.
Like a vignette. Yeah, I'm not sure. But anyway, I think it was kind of cool that they brought her back. I don't think she's still flying. Maybe she's still flying. But the redhead that did the finger waggling. Anyway, so yeah, that was interesting. But I agree. I think there's a fine line between being creative and capturing the attention of the passengers but okay, so you got my attention, but I didn't really get anything safety-wise from this thing. But I think in this case, as Captain Nick mentioned, at least they are in an airplane and they're actually showing the actual safety equipment. So, I guess they had that going for them on that.
Yep, I agree.
All right. Okay, we're going to end with this one. Again, is this like the fourth one from Paddle Your Own Canoe? Wow. Oversaturated with Paddle Your Own. Nobody can be oversaturated with Paddle Your Own Canoe. No. So, shall I read the headline? Okay. Man sentenced to 3 weeks in a notorious Singapore jail after what? Well, after flashing his genitals at a flight attendant for a joke. Well, the joke's on him.
Yep.
23-year-old Brilliant Anjaya. That is, the guy's name is Brilliant, and he was not acting out his namesake. From Indonesia is likely to end up at Singapore's notorious Changi prison complex. Did I say it? I always get it wrong. Changi. No G sound at all. Changi. Okay,
Yep,
prison
Changi.
complex. A vast high-rise jail on the outskirts of the city-state's airport, where inmates spend 23 hours a day in their cells, rarely see the sunlight, and have to sleep on the floor. Anjaya was flying back to the city-state on January 23rd aboard a Singapore Airlines flight after finishing a college placement in China. During the flight, the court heard how Anjaya knocked back 2 glasses of champagne with his first in-flight meal before he fell asleep. When he awoke from his nap, he went to use the lavatory, and at this point he told the court that he suddenly came upon the idea to expose himself at one of the flight attendants while capturing their reaction on his mobile phone as a crude prank. So he returned to his seat, he unbuckled his trousers, then hid his genitals under the airline blanket. When the flight attendant came to serve him his pre-arrival meal, he whipped off the blanket while filming the flight attendant's reaction. The clearly shocked crew member immediately averted her eyes and then continued to serve him, quickly pulling out his tray table and setting down the meal tray before retreating back to the galley. Once back to safety, the flight attendant told her supervisor about the incident and noted that Anjaya had his mobile phone pointed at her. The supervisor challenged Anjaya, and while he initially denied exposing himself, he eventually agreed to hand over his mobile phone, where footage of the incident was found by the supervisor. Yeah, wow. Impressive. All right, that deserves this reaction.
Wow. That's a lot.
Very impressive.
Okay, back to the article. So anyway, on the 23rd of March, he pleaded guilty to 1 count of sexual exposure. Prosecutors pushed the court to send him to prison for up to 6 weeks, but while the judge described his actions as inexplicable and inexcusable, he limited the sentence to 3 weeks. One of the reasons for the shorter prison sentence was that he had shown genuine remorse and had written an apology letter to the victim. The letter, which was read out to the court, said to the victim, "You do not deserve the distress and complications I caused you. I hope it gives you at least some comfort knowing that I will face justice for my action." All right. Neil in our live chat says it would have been a shame if she dropped his hot coffee in his lap. Yeah, that would have been a shame. Yeah. I think you're right. Yeah, that should have been the
Very
sentence.
good.
Okay, good. Let's get to know everybody here. Getting to know us segment. That's the time of the show where we get to find out what's been going on. What's been going on with you? Steph?
A lot of work.
A lot of
Still.
work?
Yeah.
That's boring.
But thankfully,
Yeah.
not so much this week that I couldn't spend some time with you guys this evening. So
Yay.
that was
Cool.
We're happy.
a nice
that you-
reprieve. Yeah.
Yeah.
Did do a little bit of flying over the weekend. The weather was nice
Oh.
enough for a short window on Saturday to do a little bit of jumper dumping.
Excellent.
Excellent. Yeah. Very good.
And then it got too windy, and then it was too windy the next day. So it was short lived, but nice to be back in the air. I feel like it's been the spring of bad winds here, or not jumpable winds. Definitely fine for just flying airplanes in, not that windy, but not great for skydiving activities. So kind of frustrating because a lot of times it's these, beautiful blue sunshiny days and everyone's sitting on the ground going, well, we'd like to be jumping, but, winds that are variable between, lulls of like just a couple miles an hour up to gusts of 25 miles an hour are not the greatest. So, yeah. But anyway, got a little bit done. Hopefully we'll have some nicer weather as spring continues and get to do some more flying coming up. But
Very good.
beyond that, that about sums it up for me.
Okay. Captain Nick, how about yourself?
Nothing has happened. It's been a very quiet week. So thanks for asking.
We're such an
However,
exciting bunch right now.
Yeah, there we are. Andy Wilson has been in touch, and he was describing the fact that he's involved with a charity, and he's got a very interesting, certainly for aviators, particularly in the UK and Europe, a chance to offer some time in a full flight simulator as part of a deal where you donate money and you might be drawn to get a slot. So why don't we listen to the audio, and I'll just mention now that the charity is called Mind. It's a UK-based charity founded way back in 1946 as the National Association for Mental Health. And its president is Stephen Fry, the renowned actor and raconteur, marvellous chap. So if you've got that available, please, thanks.
Here we go.
Hello, APG crew. It's Andy here, formerly of the A320 podcast and currently a co-host on PT UK, that fantastic UK podcast that I know you all listen to and love. Firstly, thanks for keeping up a great show. I can't believe I've been a listener now for well over 10 years. Fantastic. Still love to listen to it in the car. I'm providing this feedback mainly to let you guys know about an opportunity for all the AV geeks out there. A bit of background for you. My wife, my wonderful wife, has been raising money over the past several years for a British charity called Mind, which is all about helping people with their mental health. And we're both about to turn 40 this year, and she had this big idea that she would try and raise £40,000 before she was 40 for the charity. And so far, she has smashed through that. She's ran countless marathons, ran cake sales, many events, a few balls as well that have been very popular. She really puts a lot of effort into it. Now, this year, she is running 3 marathons, Paris at the weekend coming, London, and then New York. I am also taking part for the second year in a row. I'm doing the 100-kilometre challenge between London and Brighton, which is non-stop. And last year it took me around 22 hours in all weathers and conditions. So I have stupidly agreed to do that again in end of May this year. And thankfully, we got a wonderful opportunity from my employer. Normally we'd be looking for sponsorship for these sort of things, but my employer has very kindly donated a 2-hour money can't buy session in one of our A320 full flight simulators, which are not open to the public. This opportunity would give you the opportunity to fly with me in the simulator for 2 hours, yourself and up to 3 friends. So how can you go about possibly winning this? Well, we've decided we are going to have a prize draw with 100 available tickets, and we thought a reasonable donation for this would be £30. Again, you cannot purchase this kind of sim ride in one of our simulators anywhere. So how can you enter this fantastic draw? Well, there is a form that needs to be filled in, and hopefully Jeff will include it in the show notes. So follow the link, fill in the form with all your details, and then go to the Just Giving page, which is linked via the form as well. Make your donation. Make sure your name matches the name on the form so that we can tie the two together for the draw. And once we have sold 100 tickets for the draw, then we'll close it and we'll make the draw and announce the winner. Now, this is not just limited to people based in the UK. We have 2 sites where we can host the sim session. One in Europe, in northern Italy, and one down in Gatwick in the UK. The winner will have to make their own way there, and if they require accommodation, that of course comes at your cost. But this really is a money can't buy opportunity. And you'll also be making a donation to a fantastic charity. So that's all I want to say, really. Keep up the great work, guys. Love the show. And best of luck to anybody who does decide to enter. Cheers for now. Bye-bye.
Wow. And that's really not that much money per chance out of 100. That's pretty good odds.
No, you've got a 100 to 1 chance and 30 quid a go. I think that's brilliant. Good value, and what a prize, because that's, it's not a quick dash. You're sharing perhaps with a few friends a 2-hour session. That's a lot of sim time. That you better do all sorts of stuff. That would be great fun. And of course, Andy's a marvelous bloke, a great trainer, and it would be fantastic, I think, to experience that with him. We could, yes. Oh, yeah. We could.
I guess we could have an entry, yeah.
I'd choose the northern Italy. Then we could have a nice meal after. Before and after.
We could. Yeah, let's buy a ticket or two.
Yeah, let's do it. Yeah, let's buy all 100 of them.
Well,
that sounds like a great use for the coffee fund.
I think actually, yeah.
Dump all the money back
that
into
much in the coffee fund, but
£3,000 would not be a lot to pay for a two
hours of a
session.
Yeah.
So
no, not at all.
Well, we'll have to think about this on the post show. Okay. Well, yeah. Yeah, that is crazy. Wow. Have you ever done anything like that, Steph? 100-kilometer run?
I have not. I've limited my running distance, I should say, to just full marathon, 26.2 miles, 42.195 kilometers. So just under half of that. But I did the Ironman one time. That's 140 miles, but that's swimming and biking included.
Yeah, that's still amazing.
It is.
It took me like 15 hours, almost 16 hours. That's not fast.
We've got the link. The link is already in Evernote.
Oh, it's in the email?
Well, okay. and kudos to Andy's wife, who's raised, is that right, 58,000 pounds already?
Yeah, so far.
That's incredible.
Oh, man. Yeah. That's crazy. Wow.
That's some serious fundraising.
Yeah, good job.
Well done.
Good job.
Very good. Very good. Cover art time.
Yeah, this was APG 657. We had some great suggestions. Goonie something orange, tower tension, passport snafu, but the easy winner was an awesome American aviator, because we've got one on the show, our beloved leader, Captain Jeff, who is there in all his glory as the awesome American aviator with a
I wish my mustache looked like that.
Well, yeah, we all do too.
Most American.
Yeah.
Even more America.
Yeah. What was that? A TikTok video, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. The most American. Yeah, but I think that's equally marvelously American. Love the
it.
uniform, Jeff. Love the uniform.
Well, I save it for special occasions.
Great. And it looks vaguely like some kind of a mad dog. I don't know. It's they're never very good, but
Yeah. It's like a combination 747 Mad Dog. Yeah. Interesting.
Okay.
Yeah.
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 Anyway, obviously we got the show number in there. If you look on Jeff's hat, yeah, there he is. He looks a bit like a bus conductor with that number on his hat, but there you go.
All aboard.
657 on his hat. He is Alice Steely, absolutely steely fighter pilot. Actually, could you go back to his hat? I noticed that he's got a rain cloud over the top of the badge on his hat. Have you seen that? There's a little rain cloud. I thought that was.
I just saw some lightning too.
I thought that was very special.
That is special.
Yeah, the show logo is down there as well on the next slide. There it is on his chest, underneath his breast pocket. I don't think Jeff has breasts.
No, I do.
Yeah, it is red, white, and blue, just like the flag. So there you go.
Very nice. I've never looked better. I've never looked better. Thank you. Thank you, AI.
I must admit, if I were you, I'd just go out and buy a moustache that looks like that. Cause,
no kidding.
That would look so good. It goes all the way to your ears. Have you seen that? I mean, it's literally, it sort of melds with your ears. So
it's so smooth too.
I know.
I know. It looks kind of silky, right? Like you just
like candy floss.
I use a special conditioner.
Very good.
Wow. Yeah. Love it.
Well.
Thank you, Captain Nick.
Oh, you're welcome.
Yeah, now I feel kind of bad.
Suddenly feel inadequate. Oh no.
Very inadequate. You're talking about my mustache, I think, right? Okay. So I think I mentioned that I took deliveries of some furniture last week, including a media cabinet that had a space for a very large big screen television, which came on Tuesday. And pardon me? Oh, I forgot to put the pictures of the TV in. It's just a big TV. It's a 75-inch class Sonia Bravia set that I'm very pleased with. That is a lot. And it's actually, I think, almost too much, really. Like I was watching it the other day. I'm going like, my neck is hurting because I'm having to move it around so much to see the whole picture.
Yeah, you need to be farther back, almost like a movie theater type setup.
Yeah, exactly. But anyway, so that's the update to the evolution of the bachelor pad here at APG headquarters, and so I'm having fun with that. Pardon me. So yeah, lots of singing coming up. On Sunday is basically starts the Holy Week with Palm Sunday, and then Holy Week, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, singing every day, several times a day. So it's a good time of year for singers, for sure. And and that is, I think that's it. Yeah. Very good. Okay. I think now it's time for us to talk about the Coffee Fund. You can be a part of our coffee bar club.
Johnny, how much more coffee? No thanks.
I love coffee. I love tea. I love the APG community. Coffee and tea and the Java and me. A cup. Oh yeah, the Coffee Fund is your way to support our show financially, if you care to, because we love coffee here. We drink a lot of it. So let's see. We have a couple different ways to be a member of the Coffee Bar Club. One is the Coffee Fund Classic method. And since the last episode, we have a very nice contribution from Philip Caruso. And he also sent a little note with that saying, "Thank you for a great podcast and an even greater crew. Love the show." Thank you, Philip, for the kind words. Oh, yeah, we did have some feedback from him last show. Thank you, Liz. And we're also on Patreon. You can become a patron of the show. And we have a new producer named Greg Cram. And again, Patreon is a way to to pledge a certain amount of money per creation. In this case, our episodes that we do every week. At the most, we do 5 in a month, but most of the time it's 4. So anyway, check out Patreon and PayPal. You can find information about the coffee fund by going to airlinepilotguy.com/coffee. You'll be glad you did, and we will too. Yay. Okay. Oh boy.
15 minutes. Sorry.
Okay. Well, is there anything in particular in the feedback stuff that you'd like to cover before you leave?
They're all good.
Okay.
There's nothing that
All
stands
good.
out as being specifically for me or anything.
Okay. I'm hitting it, baby.
Captain, incoming message.
Go hit that bumper.
All right.
I don't know what that means.
I don't either.
Okay.
It just
so we're clear.
Something compelled me to do it. Let's start off with this from Steve. It's an update on, last episode we had the news item of the update. An audio of a father pilot and daughter kind of student pilot and the pilot's wife kind of succumbing to some kind of physiological event. And the daughter, in what we're surmising was the right seat, was able to take over control and safely land. So an ATC talked her down. And Steve says, the incident from episode 657 with the daughter landing the plane after her parents became unresponsive actually occurred in 2004, so more than 20 years ago.
Oh,
though
so
the video was
timely.
posted to YouTube only 4 weeks ago. Yeah. We're
Okay, so the
we're a
video
little behind.
the video release was recent. That's why
Yeah.
it was back circulating around.
Right. And
Because we
there
did
was
look at the
nothing
date, and it was not that. It
there
didn't
was
strike me
nothing
as
to
being-
indicate really on the video itself that it was that old. Yeah. Anyway, both parents subsequently died. Oh no. They had strokes. They both had strokes? He said it would have been very odd for both of them to have been rendered unconscious by carbon monoxide and the daughter be totally unaffected. Of course, it was quite a coincidence for both to have almost simultaneous strokes. Perhaps the stress of the father's stroke and the need for the daughter to fly the plane was a precipitating factor for the mother. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, my thought initially, if, just going on the carbon monoxide theme was, if the parents were significantly older, they may have had medical conditions that would, pre-existing medical conditions that would have allowed them to be more susceptible to carbon monoxide. But yeah, kind of crazy that they both had concurrent strokes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we'll have that news item link there as well, or actually in the show notes, so you can read it yourself. But wow, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the deal here. If you're new to Airline Pilot Guy Show, we always strive, and I think we pretty much nail it. That 50% accuracy is what we shoot for, and sometimes we dip below it. And Steve caught the fact that this was actually I guess it wasn't really an error on our part. We had no idea that it occurred so long ago.
We were missing some critical information that this was more than 20 years old, but
yeah,
still an interesting.
We were presenting it as if it had been, something that happened very recently, but
still an interesting incident to cover though, because there was a lot going on, and it was interesting to hear the interaction between the daughter flying the airplane and the air traffic controller, CFI, who was able to, they both remained relatively calm and figured out how to get them down safely.
I would love to know what happened to the daughter since this incident occurred. Did she continue with her flying lessons and become, fully certificated pilot, or did she never get in an airplane again? Maybe she became an air traffic. It would be kind of cool to figure out. Somebody do some research on that. See if we can figure it out. Do a follow-up. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you, Steve, for keeping us on track and as accurate as possible. We got some feedback from Roberta in BC, British Columbia, Victoria, right? Hi, Jeff, and the entire APG crew. As you may recall, I am listening from episode 1 and am enjoying how the show has evolved. Thanks for reading my most recent feedback, the one where I relived Dr. Steph's APG debut on episode 152. Remember that, Steph? 152?
152, got it.
My question today relates to episode 280. I've been waiting for the story of the airline pilot guy song. I can hear the "I fly a mad dog" lyrics as I write this, so curious as to where it came from. I figured its premiere would be lauded and much talked about. I've been waiting and waiting and waiting. So I was quite surprised to find the song tagged onto the end of episode 280. Yeah, I was bopping and singing. That is, until I realized that I had missed the story. What? Did I sleep through part of that episode? I don't think so. Well, it's very likely you did, because I put people to sleep very easily. As a result, I am scratching my head wondering why I did not get the story. My guess, all I can think of is that the official arrival is still in the future, and at some point you went back and tagged it onto some older episodes. I'm not sure if I did that or not.
Sounds like work.
Rebecca's bringing up a lot of things that I really I'm not sure. Wow, that's a good question. I don't know the answer to it. She says, regardless as to whether I missed it or if it has not yet been told, I'm sure many listeners would enjoy the story behind the Airline Pilot Guy song. Please tell us who wrote the lyrics, who wrote the song, who's performing, how did the song come to be? I originally thought it was you singing. I like when you sing, but I think it's another male with a somewhat familiar voice. By the way, when I originally listened to the show, it was a long time until I figured out what a mad dog was. We're still trying to figure it out, Roberta. And for those that don't know, I flew the MD 88 and the MD 90 series of basically evolution of DC-9s by McDonnell Douglas. And the Mad Dog came from the abbreviation or letters MD for McDonnell Douglas. That's Mad Dog. Yeah, I got the picture here that that's an MD-88 right there. Okay. All right, here we go. I don't know. I can't tell if this is good or not. Too close?
Yeah.
I can't tell because I can't
keep going backwards. Keep going backwards. Keep going backwards.
There you go.
We
Perfect.
go.
Yeah, now we can see all of it.
Stop it. Watch out for the So Roberta, you're like asking all these questions that are hard to answer, and I don't know the answer to most of the things you're asking me, but it's kind of fun to try to answer them. She says, thanks again for the great show and all the enjoyable ways I can waste time with the archives. Okay, so let me tell you about that song. And, well, I guess we got to go back, I don't know, many years to so, when Rick, or Miami Rick, was a regular on the show, we started receiving some feedback from a dude named, who called himself Miami Hick, not Miami Rick, but Miami Hick. And he still is a very funny guy. And he would send us all these little comedy bits And then every once in a while, he would send in something like this "No More Airplanes" song that I tag on to the end of the most of the episodes. And I think what he did is he hired, it was called Fiverr, Fiverr. It's basically a service on the internet that you can engage or hire somebody for supposedly $5, but I think it's like that's probably the minimum to create things. And so I guess actual physical things or creative songs or whatever. And this is what Brent Wright is his real name. Brent with 2 T's was very active in sending us. We really miss you, Brent, and Miami Hick. All these funny. We used to have a bunch of people send in like really, really funny bits, like Captain Jerry and the Eugene Dingus, yeah, and the fact checkers, that sort of thing. Yeah, we miss all those comedy. What we should do? We should probably put together an episode someday that has all these comedy bits all put together, all in the same episode. Yeah, let's do that. If we want to take a week off sometime, that might be fun. Yeah, well, maybe we'll do that soon. Anyway, so Brent was great about doing these things, and he just sent this in an email. I think it was in 2017 that because I went through my email archive, and this is where this was attached. And also in 2017, well, so anyway, let me, in case people don't go all the way to the end of our show every week to hear the song, let's go ahead and play this. Is that too loud?
No.
Okay.
I used to be such a good pilot till I started APG. I opened doors for little old ladies. I helped them to their seats. Airline pilot guy. I fly a Matador. Airline pilot guy. He can land in heavy fog. I got no friends cause I'm always flying.
I have no
I
friends.
just don't have the time.
I don't have the time for friends.
But I can land this old plane.
Yeah.
I can land it just fine.
Airline pilot guy.
I fly a Matador. Airline pilot guy. He can land in heavy fog. Airline pilot guy. I fly a Matador.
All right, so it goes on. That's almost the end. And we have that at the end of, as I said, most of our shows. In fact, it's funny, when we were at Oshkosh in 2019, somebody came by our big Class A motorhome. And we were talking, I remember this clearly. We were talking out front. I forgot the name of the person, but they were complaining to me that I guess I had included this at the end of the song, end of the shows. And then I just stopped doing it thinking, well, people are probably tired of hearing this. And he was chastising me saying, hey, what did you do with the Airline Pilot Guy song at the end of the shows? And I said, I don't know. I didn't think anybody actually listened, went that far to listen to it. He goes, no, man, I listen to it every time. You got to put that back in. So after Oshkosh, I started putting this back on at the tail end of the show. And in 2017, I was reliving that year and Miami Hick's contributions to our show, including, remember that he did a puppet thing, like it's a video of a puppet that sings too, I think, like some hip hop or something. Again, we can put that in the show, that special show that we'll do. But the other thing that he sent in 2017 was something that I don't remember. I mean, I've played it. I remember playing it, but I haven't played it as often as maybe I should. And yeah. Oh, okay.
That's all right. I'm going to listen to this and then I'm going to go.
Okay. Okay. Sorry, Steph. Let me again, he hired Fiverr, Fiverr, and it's called I Want My APG, Fiverr Audio. And let me make it pausable. Okay. And here we go. You ready?
Now look at them yo-yos, that's the way you do it. You talk a lot on the APG. Now that ain't working, that's the way you do it. Money for flying and your beer for free. Now that ain't working, that's the way you do it. Let me tell you, them guys ain't dumb. Maybe get a little blister on your finger. Maybe get a blister on your thumb. We've got to fly these McDonnell Douglas. We've got to fly these Airbuses. We've got to move these passengers. And we don't do it for free.
We don't do it for free. Okay. So that's, I remember
that
it.
one.
I think we only played it like once.
Yeah, it was just a one-off in an episode that we did, I'm pretty sure. Because there were so many little things like that he did and sent in or had done and sent in to us. Yeah.
Yeah. So again, I'll say we miss all of you, especially Miami Hick. All the little comedy bits. Yeah. 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 Yeah, I do remember that.
All kinds of stuff we can put into the bonus episode at some point.
Yeah,
I'm sure.
Absolutely.
Anyway, that was a great little trip down memory lane there. Thanks, Roberta. And on that happy high note, I'm going to leave you guys to finish out this show, and hopefully I will see you guys next week.
Bye, Steph.
Bye.
All right. Thanks, Steph.
Right. Yep. See y'all.
All right. Take care. Okay. So, and thank you, Roberta, for sending in that a reminder of the blast from the past. And yeah, so there you go. And I guess the Fiverr service or whatever you want to call it. I mean, I don't think Brent knew any of these people. He just probably did some kind of a search for people that did these types of creations. So we don't really know who the artist was or whatever. I like the guy that sings No More Than that first one better than the one that did the, I Want My APG. I don't think that one was quite as good. Yeah. But anywho, so that's kind of the best answer we have for you regarding that. Let's continue on with the next from Texas, Ann Lashock. And the title of his feedback is Martian Aviation. I'm thinking, what? What is he talking about? Greetings, Captain Jeff and APG crew. First off, I have to shout out AJ for recognizing my moniker. And to him, I say, how do you pronounce that? Isiljaven in Valen's name. I don't know. I don't even know what I just said. I probably just swore in Martian. Now I had another video I came across my feed that I felt like sharing. This one from channel Veritasium about the Mars Ingenuity helicopter, or as she is affectionately known, Ginny. We as a race are nothing if not sentimental. The video goes over the craft, its purpose, design, original mission, and then her extended mission leading up to her original mission and then her extended mission leading up to what eventually grounded her for good. It's a fascinating tale, especially considering this was something that NASA wasn't that enthused about. They saw it as little more than a side project that would make a few flights and then would fail without any real contribution. And then Perseverance would just continue on by itself. Instead, it became a vital part of the mission, scouting out areas for the rover to investigate. Not bad for something put together on a budget using Samsung Galaxy electronics. The video leads up to what amounts to the first investigation of a crash on another planet, which I won't spoil here, but the part I really wanted to share is near the end, where they start talking about the future and they reveal what I think is possibly the coolest part of the entire thing. Remember what I said about sentimentality. Anyway, that's all for now. Clear Martian skies. This is the Texas Anlashock signing off. And then he gave us a timestamp to search for the part that he wants me to play. And I think I did that. So if we're on the, there we go, on the stage. And let me see if I got it close to that time mark that he sent to us.
You're envisioning like a future of aviation all over Mars as a primary explorative capacity.
In my mind, it's absolutely going to happen. It's just a matter of time. There will be fleets flying, throughout Mars. There will be airports on Mars one day, and we'll have aircraft the size of Chopper, more aircraft the size of Ingenuity, and even bigger than Chopper.
NASA is thinking big thanks to Ingenuity, a project they once doubted.
Because Ginny showed what is possible.
In 1890, if you had said, I'm going to fly, it's like, okay, that kooky guy in his garage, he thinks he can fly, he's going to kill himself, right? After the Wright brothers, it's like, oh, okay, yeah, this is a thing that we're going to do. And so that's the change in mentality that's occurred because of Ingenuity.
That's why, still sitting there on the surface of Mars, attached to the underside of Ingenuity, is a tiny scrap, 1 square centimeter of muslin fabric. It was taken from the lower left wing of the first airplane, the Wright Flyer. From the first flight on Earth to the first flight on another planet. From Ingenuity's grave on Mars, her spirit lives on. Except she isn't quite dead yet.
She's acting as a weather station now, capturing photos every day, capturing temperature measurements every day, something no one would have ever predicted before Flight 72, that if things don't go well, would you still have a functioning spacecraft? So she's a tank. The team couldn't be more proud of what Ingenuity's accomplished.
There we go. That's a great video, and that's just the very end of it. And you should check it out. A link in the show notes. Thank you so much, Texas Anlashock, for sending that in.
Yeah, I watched it all. I absolutely loved it. I mean, the technological hurdles they all had to overcome to get that thing to fly. And it was all theoretical, and they wouldn't really know until they got it onto the planet and then saw how it would cope with the atmosphere. And they did their job perfectly. It was really, really good.
Very well put together video by Veritasium. Again, link in the show notes. Okay. Or do we need to save some, Liz, so we have some for the next show? Why don't we do... okay, we'll do Peter's, but first we'll do Andy and then Peter. How about that? Okay. Actually, we can quickly do Kevin, number 6. So we'll do 5, 6, 7. Well, we might as well do them all. Okay, here we go. Okay, this is from Andy Harris. He says, feedback question, and the question involves airline relationships. Hello, APG crew. Happy spring. Could you please describe the relationship between airline pilots and their airline? Do you feel like part of the company or more like a free agent? Who's your boss, and where do you handle administrative tasks? Are you able to build relationships with your coworkers, even though flying with the same co-pilots is rare? Perhaps you become familiar with gate agents, similar to how office workers get to know a receptionist. What other unique differences exist between an airline pilot and other corporate workers, whether blue or white collar? How does the union influence your relationship with the company? Do you feel like this relationship can be improved? I noticed I've been listening to your show for 8 to 10 years. I love the aviation podcast community, and it's been awesome watching careers grow, relationships grow stronger. Jeff, you have an amazing media skill from showmanship to technical ability. Hats off to all of the crew members, and thank you. Oh, thank you, Andy. That was very nice of you. I remember spending time with you. Probably the last time I saw you, Andy, was down. It was in Dayton. No, I think it was I had a layover in Dayton that we met up together and had a meal together, because I think he lives in that area. Anyway, so his questions regarding relationships, and I think the first one that he has here, do you feel like part of the company or more like a free agent? I think it really depends on the airline that you're flying for. Wouldn't you agree, Captain Nick? I think.
Yeah, very much so. And whether they're, you've got airline representatives available when you come to work, and how often you meet people who actually help and run the airline. For me, it was very rare. I'd come to work and I would go nearly a year without really seeing anyone who, other than your manager on the phone, perhaps, who ran the airline. And occasionally you'd go into the headquarters and do an annual, safety equipment procedures or CRM lectures and things for a few days, and you wouldn't see anyone from headquarters for another year.
Yeah, I agree. And the other thing that I'll say, because there some airlines, I think the relationship that the company has with its pilots is, and in fact, I know that there are airlines that have individual contracts for each of the pilots, so everybody's kind of their own free agent. And so in that case, you kind of probably feel like you're a free agent and your primary allegiance is to yourself and your career, and not necessarily the airline for whom you're flying with at the moment. On the other hand, in my experience, it was with a legacy airline, one of the big major airlines before deregulation, and but was successful in living through beyond deregulation. And my relationship with the company was, the company employs me. They're the ones that write, my paychecks. And the customers are the ones that are flying on my airplanes, who are paying for my salary, basically indirectly, but through my company. And I had a very strong loyalty and allegiance to my company. And I was fortunate to be able to fly with a company that very much had especially in the early part of my career, it was like a family. It was just, everybody was very close and had a common pride for what we did, and common goals and that kind of thing. The union, for those who are represented by unions, and I was, from the time I started at Delta, from the time that I ended, except for maybe my probationary year, because you're not really allowed to become a member of the union until you're off of probation. But from the time I was off probation through the end of my career, the union was basically the pilots group representative. And so when we had to engage in contract negotiations with the company and negotiators, the union negotiators were the ones that were representing us. And so in that respect, we had an allegiance to the union. But for me personally, it was always, okay, thank you very much for those union association volunteers for negotiating the best contract that you can give for us, and then also for representing us and protecting us in case we did something wrong. You always felt like that was a security blanket, that the union was going to have your back. But again, I was very fortunate that Delta also, I always had the feeling that as long as I was doing everything the way that I should, I wasn't doing anything nefarious, and I wasn't doing anything neglectful or criminal, that the company also would have my back. And so that was I was very, one of the rare situations where both the union and the company, I felt, were looking out for me at all times, as long as I didn't do anything stupid. So that was my relationship with the company. And again, anytime there was any kind of contract negotiations going on, and you would see all kinds of different perspectives and viewpoints regarding this and that. But my bottom line was the paycheck, when we actually had paper paychecks, before direct deposit to your bank. But I knew that the person writing these checks was the actual company, and that's why I had a very strong allegiance to it. And then building relationships with coworkers, and he mentions, it's very rare to fly with the same co-pilots over and over and over again. Although if you're senior enough and you really hit it off with somebody like my favorite co-pilot Brent, who later upgraded to a captain, we were able to fly together a lot. So that was a very strong relationship, it still is, strong friendship. But that's kind of rare. I agree. But same thing with gate agents for sure. Yeah, both Brent and I had a favorite gate agent, and several pilots did have a few gate agents that we really liked a lot. And we, if we had some time between flights, going in and out of our hub, if we were able to kind of meet up with the gate agents, or at least talk to them for a little while, we did, and just made our relationship stronger. So that's from me, my perspective of relationships at a company like an airline, which is a little bit different than the corporate world, of course. And what would you say, Captain Nick?
Yeah, it's a pretty unique situation to be in, really, where you have the position of a senior manager as a captain in a company, but you very rarely have contact with the company. You get everything comes through in mail or an email, or finally we would go online to check when we were required to work. We'd drive to the airport, which isn't where the company headquarters is. No, it's the only people you're going to see there are the people who are going to work, or perhaps they're on doing a bit of standby. And even there were very rarely did we see anyone of a managerial position there. We'd check in, we'd do our paperwork, get on an airplane, fly halfway around the world. Our co-workers, you'd sometimes get to know some of the cabin crew, because quite honestly, we'd fly with the same senior cabin crew quite often. But the pilots, it was much harder because, even though we were a small airline and our fleet was only half of that airline, we didn't encounter the same pilots very often. You wouldn't make great friendships. It was really hard to do that. But you'd know people well enough to go out for a meal together or have some drinks together. And when you came back, you didn't even really touch base with the company. You landed, you parked the airplane, filled out the tech log, got in your car, drove home, and you didn't have any contact. They were your days off. They were sacrosanct. It was almost unheard of for the company to contact you during your rest days. When it came time to go back to work, you'd repeat the cycle, and very, very rarely was that cycle broken by some sort of interaction with the main company. And occasionally when we did go down to the headquarters, we'd be there amazed at their cut price restaurants. They had gymnasiums, they had salons to have your hair done and things, and we'd be going, this is how the other half live. But of course they'd be looking at us going, you just fly off around the world, stay in the world's best hotels. You go to all these fantastically exotic places. So we'd look at each
Jackson,
other.
Mississippi.
Yeah.
Dayton, Ohio. Yeah.
Yeah, we'd look at each other thinking, the grass is always greener. But it is a really weird situation to be in, where all your communication really is done with emails, just the odd email. It's very rare, and they're usually very generic, aimed at the entire pilot force. Nope. We never had career advice. We never got any kind of your manager phoning up to give you a how goes it, we want to give you your assessment, Nick, and tell you you're so good and you brilliantly handled that. I mean, occasionally if you were involved in a really difficult mission where there was a lot of hurdles to overcome, you might get a letter from your fleet manager, saying thank you. which was much appreciated. But it so rarely happened that, I've got less than a handful of those in 25 years. So, yeah. So
Or
you just
somebody
get on
like
and do your job.
Like a passenger writes a nice letter to you, whatever, then you might hear something from your manager. But I always kind of thought it was funny that, in an organization like an airline, it had various forms of managerial hierarchy and relationships, as Nick was just stating, like if you have to fill out paperwork, what's your department number, who's your supervisor, and you go, oh, let's see, who is my supervisor? And I guess, we always put the chief pilot for the Atlanta base, that's our supervisor, even though most of the time I'd never even met the supervisor. It's just kind of a weird existence, I think. And it was kind of a difficult thing, I think, for a lot of the people at Delta, especially around the time frame where I was hired back in the 80s and 90s. And even now, today, they still hire as many military or former military pilots as they can. But there was, when my initial training class, I think probably at least 90% of us were, military. And a lot of now I didn't have the kind of experience really that Captain Nick had with squadrons. But many because I was flying transports and we were kind of much more like an airline kind of a system and squadron and wing and that kind of thing, rather than like a fighter squadron or whatever. But the guys that were kind of used to that existence, Nick, with the squadron, fighter squadrons and that kind of thing, really kind of felt kind of lost almost when they started flying for the airlines, because they're going like, hey, even though we're not flying, let's get together and do, but that doesn't happen in the civilian airline world. It's just
much rarer. And yeah, you're right. I kind of felt the same, but I'd been out of work for a year before I got my job with Virgin, so I was kind of a bit weaned off the Air Force family life a little bit by the time I got my job. And it's also new that you kind of expect it to be different. At least I did. So I didn't really kind of feel it was difficult. I just thought it was just different. That's all.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's also one of the reasons why, at least with Delta Airlines, a lot of the people that were getting hired, right before me and for several years after, or maybe even decades after, the appeal of living in an area south of the airport called Peachtree City, because so many of the people knew the people from the military days, and it was kind of almost like, we kind of sarcastically called it on occasion like base housing, like everybody was living down there, and they're all having something to do with the airline, and many of whom knew each other in the military life and that kind of thing. And honestly, it was really nice down there, but I thought, I've always wanted to be in the airlines, fly for the airlines. I don't want to, I've already done the base housing thing. I want to get somewhere else away from this kind of thing and try to be like a normal person. And I mean that in a good, not to put down the people that wanted to kind of stay together and have that kind of familial squadron kind of feel. It's just, for me, it was like, I just want to, be like a regular person from now on. And so that's why one of the reasons why we chose to live where we did. Anyway, there was another point that I was going to make, something you said, Nick, that I wanted to kind of emphasize as well, but now I've lost it. So, oh well. Yeah, great questions, Andy. Thank you for that. Okay. We're going to do this from Peter. I don't know if Peter's still here with us. I think he is.
Yep.
Oh, yeah. Look, he made the last comment in our live chat. So he says, just finished APG 657, and a couple of questions came to mind. That was our last episode. Captain Nick mentioned ETOPS. Are there any stats as to how many times or how often ETOPS is, quote, invoked? In other words, how many times has an engine quit, yet the plane is able to continue to its destination? Second question, in the outro song, it's mentioned that he can't land in heavy fog. Do most, if not all, airliners have auto-land capability? Thanks, Peter. And I'm going to answer that in a moment, Peter. But we're going to first tackle the first question that you asked, and Captain Nick, you addressed it to, and so he's going to be able to answer this question.
Yeah, well, I was never really a true expert with ETOPS because when I joined the airline, we all had 4 engines, and so it was only in the last few years that we had this strange business of having ETOPS. No, you won't ever, if you have an engine failure, you won't ever go to your destination, ever. Unless you're so close to it that is the equivalent, this distance of your nominated ETOPS diversion. When you're in your ETOPS period, which is the bit where you're out across an ocean or something equivalent, you will have nominated ETOPS diversions. And if you get an engine failure, the first thing you will do, other than going through the drills, is head for that diversion, because you're never going to try and continue on the route, because now you're a single engined aircraft, and everything, all those people, the safety of the aircraft is relying on the one available power plant, and you're never going to take the risk that you might have a second failure by persisting in carrying on a longer flight to your destination than you would if
Wait. You don't want to put all your eggs in one basket? Come on.
Well, I have at times put all my eggs in one basket, and usually I come a cropper. So, yeah. That is kind of what ETOPS is predicated on, the fact that you have these diversions that are close enough to you to be able to get to them within the limitations of the ETOPS time that you are flying for that route. And that time, it depends on various factors. And in fact, an airline often has to get the maximum ETOPS range so that they can fly well over the ocean and not hug the coastline, as it were, close to their diversions. They have to earn that through flying the aircraft without major problems, to have very high engineering standards, to have very good statistics that allow them to do that. They will earn their ETOPS distances. So you don't mess about with ETOPS. As soon as you get a failure, you're off to your diversion.
Yeah, I think really isn't that the whole point of ETOPS, is that you have special diversion points dynamically changing as you're moving along your very long route. And if ETOPS is invoked, you never go to your destination, as Captain Nick just said, unless you just happen to be like in the initial or final descent of your trip. You're going to be heading to the destination airport. But if you're out in the middle of nowhere, yeah, that's the whole point of ETOPS, is to be able to limp in that one engine and get it to a suitable alternate.
Exactly.
So
right. Yeah.
That was a great explanation. Thank you. I could have done it. Second question was the outro song. No More Airplanes is the one that I've been playing with. And I have to be honest with you, Peter, I thought the same thing that you thought, that the singer was saying, and the lyrics were, he can't land in heavy fog. And I went,
oh no, you can.
Well, that's kind of a slap. Yeah, well, he's saying can. And I had to go back and listen to it. And I went, oh yeah, and let me see if I'm going to try to find the exact point where he says that. It does sound like he's saying he can't land in heavy fog, but he's saying he can land in heavy fog. So I felt much better when I learned that. I'm thinking, okay, it's saying a good thing about me, not a bad thing. Although most of that song is bad things about me. I don't have any friends. I used to be able to fly airplanes well, but now I do the podcast, basically, is the whole gist of that song. Anyway, so
by the way,
good question.
Peter did ask if we had any stats as to how many times ETOPS is invoked. It's pretty rare, quite honestly, and I don't often hear of them. I really can't remember the last time I heard of an ETOPS diversion. They obviously do occur, but they are quite remarkably rare. I don't know if someone must keep the stats, but I don't know how to get hold of those, I'm afraid.
Yeah, I don't either. And then going back to these songs, and thank you again, Roberta, for asking the question about the Airline Pilot Guy song at the end, and then my rediscovery of the other song that Brent had created for us, I Want My APG. I'm thinking now maybe I should just, like every show, alternate between those two different songs. Maybe that way more people will get a chance to hear that. Anyway, just a thought that I'd add before we sign off and wrap this up. And I think that would that be a good idea, Liz, for us to wrap it up?
She's gone.
Oh no! What happened to her?
She's just come back. I think
she
she's let the dog
sideswiped,
out.
I think. Ah, there she is. Oh, okay. So yeah, I think it's time for us to wrap up this episode 658 by pointing you over to airlinepilotguy.com, our website, and lots of stuff there to check out. And we're also on the social medias, and Captain Nick is going to tell you about that. Oh, do it from heart,
I'm
Captain
now
Nick.
going to tell you about the social medias. We have a presence on Facebook, facebook.com/airline pilot guy. On X, we're at APG Crew. Instagram is very similar, /APG Crew. And on YouTube, of course, where you see the smelly sausage being pounded out.
Well, it's not that smelly.
YouTube.com/airline pilot guy, all one word.
Yeah, that conjures up something.
Jeff,
just
why do all
awful in
these
my mind.
emails keep arriving from people who want to improve our YouTube performance?
Because
I feel
obviously
quite
we're doing
inadequate.
so poorly.
Yes, I do. I'm really they're all going. You've got all these YouTube broadcasts, but you've got a lousy listener. I'm going, go away, leave us alone.
The funny thing is they don't realize that YouTube, we don't even monetize the YouTube videos. We were just using this as our platform to record the audio podcast. So I think, people are confused. Oh, shoot. I didn't answer the second part of his question about Autoland. Okay, let me go back to it. Okay. Why? Okay. I answered the part about the landing or not being able to land in heavy fog. Don't all airliners have Autoland capability? I would say that yes, most.
Except
not
the
all.
museum pieces that Jeff used to fly.
All of the airplanes that I flew in the airlines had Autoland capability. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Even my beloved 727 had a Category 2 Autoland capability.
Wow. Sophisticated.
Did not have auto throttles. I mean, there were some models of it that did, but the ones that Delta ended up inheriting from Northeast Airlines, Northeast didn't opt for the auto throttle system. So it was all manual throttles, which kept you in the game the entire time. You always knew where your engine thrust was because you had to, because you were the one responsible for ensuring that the speeds stayed in the proper ranges and that kind of thing. And in fact, I also flew an airplane that probably I would say, and I think many out there would argue that the L-1011 had the best auto land system of any airplane ever. I mean, it was just amazing. I don't know. I think it would hold its own even today. But it would be tough. There's a lot more competition now. But I would think that there were probably some of the smaller airplanes that are used in maybe regional or commuter airlines, especially maybe some of the turboprops, like is it the Jetstream? Is that the name of the? It's a British-made turboprop airline thing.
Not really an airline. I'm more an exec transport.
Yeah, but I mean, small airlines have used it though in airline scheduled service,
Yeah.
and I don't even think it has an autopilot at all. I think it's all hand flown, or maybe the
Oh.
earlier models of it, and the smaller
It's cheap
models.
and cheerful, that's for sure.
Yeah, and so, but that's very rare in the airline Part 121 world, to have an airliner that doesn't at least have an auto flight, some kind of a crewed auto flight system, and many, or if not most, have the auto land capability. It may not have Category 3 auto land capability, but even having Category 1 and sometimes Category 2 is nice, nice to have. Is there somebody in my bathroom again? Gosh darn it. Hello? Hey, can you tell us about Slack?
Okay, but I'm dripping wet.
All right, that's all right. Come on over here. You just walk to that closed door, and he's going to come over here, stand next to me, and he's going to tell you about Slack.
APG listeners, please join us on our Slack team. Slack is a communication, coordination, and sharing platform that works on your mobile, laptop, or browser. On Slack, we share news and ideas, we suggest episode and plain tales topics, we plan events and meetups. To get into the Slack team, please email me at slack@airlinepilotguy.com. That's SLACK, Sierra Lima Alpha Charlie Kilo @airlinepilotguy.com. Or send me a tweet with your preferred email address to @Hillel, and I'll send you an invitation. That's Hillel, spelled Hotel India 11 Echo 1, and see you in Slack.
Thanks a lot, Hillel. Huh? Hello? Thanks a lot, Hillel. made a new name for him. All right, and we also, as always, want to thank our lovely producer who does so much work.
Good job.
Behind the scenes and during the show. You don't even know it. In fact, I have to apologize for some reason. Last show, her audio track was not being recorded at all, so I'm sure you missed.
Some people probably
Liz, except
liked
for
it,
the
but
very beginning and very end. Unless you're one of those people out there who hates hearing from Liz, and then you were probably very happy on the last episode.
tried.
But this time, I made sure that she's being recorded, so we have that lovely producer audio in the background. So, thank you, Liz, for everything.
you're so welcome.
And we'd like to thank our live chat, our live audience, and thank everybody out there for listening to our show. We really appreciate you. We love you. And until we see you again, wishing you clear skies and limited visibility and tailwinds. Take care and God bless.
Bye, everybody.
See you next time. That's a wrap.
That's a wrap, baby.
That's a wrap.
Hey,
Ooh,
the
I'm
other
a
thing
bit
I was thinking
hungry.
about...
I could do with a wrap. Sorry.
For show titles, I was thinking before we get too far. Hang on, let me turn this.
See if you have one that I have.
At the beginning of the show, we were talking about a couple of incidents of duck unders. So I don't know if ducking under or duck under has any
Okay, that's good.
possibility for an
There you go.
idea, but just
yeah.
thought I'd throw that out there.
That's good. Okay, here's
Okay,
what
else do we have?
Here's what I've got is musical memories. Musical memories.
Oh yeah.
I have fire and ice. We talked about fire and ice. We had Moscow and the landing on the icy lake.
Oh, okay.
Remember that? No knob twiddling. We had a thing about twiddling.
Yeah, I got that one myself.
Did you get that one?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. No knob twiddling.
Wing antifreeze. Remember the pilot said they needed wing antifreeze? I don't know. Anyway. Now this one is from Micah. This is about the ETOPS thing. It's all eggins instead of engines. All eggins in one basket. Anyway.
You lost me. What's
okay?
Eggins?
So I'll put his comment up here, and you can read it yourself. Where is it here? Where are you, Micah? Here we go. That's what he was suggesting. All your egg
egg engines. Okay,
Eggins in one basket.
Eggins. There's a discussion about DC-10s and L-1011s. They did make an L-1011 tanker, as they said there. Neil mentioned we had the last
tanked
few
off it many
scrapped at
times.
Bruntingthorpe. Yeah.
In fact, I was in the first RAF operational formation to tank off a TriStar, so didn't work very well back then, but got better.
Oh, that's good.
So you got something to work with there, Nicholas?
Oh, I can make something out of that. Yeah. What was musical memories?
Well, Roberta was bringing
Like
up
from
right,
Miami
okay.
Hick.
No,
Brent.
can't do that one.
No, okay, all right.
Peter Tarantelli, did the U.S. fly them? The L-1011 tankers? No, I think it was only Britain.
Yeah, and the big problem we had was they only had centerline hoses, so you could only tank one aircraft at a time. It had a pretty good flow rate, but I mean, it had two hoses there in case one failed.
Didn't have a good flow rate.
Yeah, yes.
Flomax.
Unlike us old gentlemen, our flow rate isn't quite up to
Hey,
that.
I still have a pretty decent flow rate.
What do you
so
do?
far. Knock on wood.
Yeah,
Yeah.
glad to hear that.
He's so much younger than we are, Nick.
Yeah, he is.
I'm just a little youngin'.
Just a youngin'.
Yeah.
Well, thanks, you guys. Captain Nick's got to get to bed. It's after midnight over there. So.
Yeah, I've got things to do in the morning as
Okay.
well. So. In fact,
Thanks,
later
thanks
today.
everybody. We'll see you next time.
Cheers, guys.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks, everybody.